America's #1 shave at lower prices every day, putting money back in the pockets of millions of Americans. As one of those workers, I'm proud to bring you Gillette quality for less, because nobody can beat the men and women of Gillette. Gillette, the best a man can get.
To feed your phenomenal, Lean Cuisine is changing. Over 20 dishes with no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. With ingredients like toasted sesame seeds and savory rice noodles in our garlic sesame noodles with beef. Feed your phenomenal with Lean Cuisine.
Hurricane season is here, and to take on the most powerful weather on Earth, the first response team depends on the longest-lasting pickups in America, Ram trucks. Wherever hurricanes hit, this team will strike back with power and passion, steering survivors through the storm and towards a silver lining. This hurricane season, strap in, buckle up, and ride along with the team on the Weather Channel. Ram trucks and the first response team of America, powering the road to recovery.
We all want restful sleep. That's why Nature's Bounty Melatonin is made to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, so you'll be ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Because mom's love is unconditional, even at 6 a.m. Nature's Bounty Melatonin. We're all better off healthy. Nature's Bounty knows healthy cholesterol starts in your gut, so we made Cardio Health, an innovative way to support healthy cholesterol containing LRC, a probiotic strain that helps you metabolize dietary cholesterol. Because we all want to be healthy for whatever comes next. Nature's Bounty Cardio Health.
I love you, a bushel and a peck. You bet your birdie neck I do.
While other insurance companies just see a house, we see the home you've worked really hard for.
It's been building up over decades. And through 35 years of severe weather, it's strengthened into trust. Trust in the Weather Channel. To us, nothing matters more. Every season, every storm, every time you watch, trust the Weather Channel.
Hey guys, welcome back to Corpus Christi. Just getting word that the roof, or I don't know if it was a beam, it's just coming out. That's over on my phone looking at it. The roof or the beam of an Enterprise rent-a-car, which is actually not too far from me. I'm going to have my producer go check it out, has collapsed. Now, I don't know if that's the weight of the water, if the wind, what have you. I have no idea. Steve's going to go over and check that out for you. Out here on Shoreline Boulevard, you can occasionally see some debris going on by. And the reason I've added the helmet to the arsenal is pretty simple, because when you have these palm trees and potential debris blowing around, you just want to protect your noggin. So why not? Again, guys, winds have gusted here at about 74, 75 miles an hour. The highest gust we've seen is Port Aransas. And the news we want to share with you now is we've just gotten word from the Weather Channel that the Torcon index is now up to an 8 for Southeast Texas. Up to an 8. So seeing things as these bands come ashore where we may get an additional jack up, if you will, in the tornado potential. That is something that we absolutely will watch for you. Again, guys, you can see some of the debris. It's all light debris. It isn't anything heavy here. Swirling around, occasional branches about this size right in here. This is about what we're seeing right now come in from the storm, and that'll continue to be the case, especially with these kind of winds. This is strong tropical storm force to occasional minimal hurricane gusts is what we're dealing with it through here. So again, guys, as we talked about, we're probably going to see just the western edges of this. We're not going to take the eye wall, unfortunately, fortunately I should say, for Corpus Christi, but unfortunately areas off to my north, like Port Lavaca, like Port O'Connor, certainly Victoria could certainly deal with a part of this eye wall as it comes in. Remember, we're starting at Category 4, so it may weaken a little bit, but we certainly are anticipating some structural damage with the kind of winds that we can see. All right, let's get some ideas of what is happening with this thing. Brian Norcross, are we seeing the western eye wall coming ashore yet?
Now, the thing is kind of moving in a northwesterly direction, but the edge of the eye wall has reached the barrier island, Jim, just to the east of Port Aransas. I mean, everything's kind of an angle there in the coastal bend of Texas, as you know. So here's Port Aransas. Look at it right there. There's the edge of the eye wall right over the island there. San Jose Island, that's what that's called, is it not? I think San Jose Island. So you have an island here. That's San Jose Island. This is Mustang Lang Island down here, and here's Matagorda Island up to the north. So it's come ashore, the edge of the eye wall. That's not landfall now from the hurricane. It's when the center of the hurricane makes it to the coastline. That's when we have technical landfall. When we look at the 3D version, Jim, you're in kind of a moat right now between the band that you were in before and this next very strong band that's between Port Aransas and the coastline and Victoria, and we can see the eye wall there. This very enhanced eye wall is right on the coastline. And Jim, when we look at the satellite, we can see that the storm has, if anything, edged a little bit farther north. So I'm really concerned about where Mike Seidel is, and that he has a safe place to go, because the northeast quadrant of this hurricane looks like it's going directly over Port Lavaca. The way this is going, because it's bending a little bit right, and this, if it continues this trend, Victoria, anybody that's watching from Victoria needs to really think about where they are going to ride out this hurricane. They need to get to the interior part of their home and think tornado here. Think safest place in your home in Victoria, Texas, because this Idel is heading right in that direction. Along with Port Lavaca, as I said, and Mike Seidel is there. Mike.
Hey, Brian, we're here in Port Lavaca. You mentioned us trying to figure out where the eye wall is going to go. We're going to get clipped maybe on the northeast side. That wouldn't surprise me. That's where you have the strongest winds and the heaviest rainfall. And I just noted that Victoria, which is about 30 miles north of here, inland in Victoria County, where they also have a mandatory evacuation. I believe the only inland county that went with a mandatory. They just gusted to 49 miles an hour. So it goes to show you what kind of night is ahead for Victoria, a city that is much larger than here in Port Lavaca. Now look at the water rise here on the wall, and we've seen changes just in the past half an hour, picking up these bricks that were surrounding this landscaping around the palm tree, and this water comes up and it goes into that drainage. Now that drainage is for rainfall, and then it just goes, it tries to go back out into the Lavaca Bay. So a nasty, angry Lavaca Bay. Again, reminding you, we're about 25 or so miles as the crow flies from the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico. No doubt the wave action out there is much higher, because we're only getting a wind fetch across here. Now look how dark it is in the distance. Now we are losing light out here, but it is getting darker. We've got another band coming our way, but the real intense bands are still on the horizon. We've still got a little bit of time before we get really hammered, like they're getting down on the coast of Aransas County, Port Aransas, up to Rockport, Aransas, past those areas. I was there in June for my niece's wedding. It's so beautiful, that beach. You can drive out to it, and you can play ball on the beach. You can cook out. A lot of beaches these days, you really can't do much except sit there and watch the water. There's so many rules, but Aransas Beach, Aransas Pass Beach is just so nice. It'll be interesting to see how all those condos, all the condominiums that have been built up in recent years, a lot of that construction is new there, how that fares, and I guess we'll find out in the days to come. But it won't be one of these deals where the hurricane comes in and comes out, Brian, and we can get back in there tomorrow with the sun coming out, because often the day after the sun comes out, and we can really take a look at what impacts we have. Boy, isn't it getting dark out here right now? We've got this next squall. I can see the rain lowering the visibility in the distance on the Texas 35 bridge. So Brian, we'll throw it back to you. You can update us on the radar and show what is rolling our way around the northeast side, the north side of Hurricane Harvey. Yes,
Mike, that you see is not the eye wall. It is the band outside the eye wall, though. And it's the band that here we're looking at the radar. Let me show you where Mike is. Mike's right up here in Port Lavaca. It's this band that he's seeing here. So the eye wall is down here where the strongest winds are. So first thing that's going to happen in the next probably half hour or something like that, that as the hurricane goes to the northwest or the northwest, that these bands are going to move in the same direction. So it's not that far away. Maybe about as far as you are from Port O'Connor, Mike, is how far that band is from you that's coming in. And obviously it's got stronger winds than you have now, and then you have the eye wall to come where the maximum winds are in this northern part of the eye wall based on what we can see here. The other thing that is very, very important, and it's really critical that Mike is on high ground there, because with the circulation coming like this, that's pushing that Gulf water. And look what it's doing here. It's pushing the Gulf water into Matagorda Bay here, and that's pushing it up into Lavaca Bay. So that is going to increase. So far, it's been kind of oblique the way the wind has come. But when the center gets up in here and the circulation is like this, it's going to push the water directly up toward Port Lavaca. And that's why the National Hurricane Center has put up the storm surge information showing very high water. Look at the reds up in here. The reds are 9 to 12 feet above dry land. Now, good thing is Port Lavaca is where the blues are there, because it is high. They actually moved the city there from Indianola, which is down toward Port O'Connor. They moved it because it was flooded twice and destroyed in Indianola, and they moved it to Port Lavaca, which is on high ground. All right, Mike, I can see you feeling the wind there. Do you have a sense that the water is coming up yet, Mike, or a sense of the way the tide is flowing? Is it flowing from the south yet?
Yeah, the water is slowly coming up. One thing we don't have here, Brian, as you probably well know, there's not much of a tidal range. High tide and low tide, you're talking about a 6 to 8 inch range versus the East Coast, where it's always problematic timing the landfall. And the strongest onshore winds will be low tide, high tide, or somewhere in between. I know it's all factored into the water rise from the National Weather Service, the Hurricane Center, but that's one part of the equation we don't have to worry about here, because there's really no tidal range. With that said, the water is coming right up on the wall here. We're watching the rain coming across Lavaca Bay, and this town is a ghost town. Power is still on. Our winds have gusted to about 50 miles an hour here in Port Aransas. I mentioned earlier, Victoria Inland has already gusted to 49. Reynolds Wolf will be live from the Victoria area. He'll take us all night long on the Weather Channel, and he may take, if not the eye wall, the eye itself, early on Saturday morning. We'll have continuing coverage. We'll go back to Jim Cantori in the thick of it in Corpus Christi on the Weather Channel. Harvey battering the Texas coast tonight and through the weekend.
Ugh, heartburn.
Sorry, ma'am, no burning here.
Try Alka-Seltzer Heartburn Relief Gummies. They don't taste chalky and work fast.
Incredible. Can I try? She doesn't have heartburn.
Alka-Seltzer Heartburn Relief Gummies. Enjoy the relief.
Hi, so I just got off the phone with our Allstate agent, and I know that we have accident forgiveness. So the incredibly minor accident that I had tonight.
4 weeks without the car.
Okay, yep, good night.
With accident forgiveness, your rates won't go up just because of an accident. Switching to Allstate is worth it.
Who says eating on the run means eating like teenagers who kicked over a vending machine? Is that who we are? No, it isn't. Sabra Grab and Go. Hummus, pretzels, self-respect. Sabra, welcome to the unofficial meal.
Let's dance, Grandma.
You don't let anything keep you sidelined.
Come on.
That's why you drink Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals for the strength and energy to get back to doing what you love. Ensure, always be you.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone.
Children's Claritin is the only brand that provides 24-hour non-drowsy allergy relief products.
Plus, it's the #1 pediatrician-recommended non-drowsy brand.
Gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Hi, Phil Swift here for Flex Tape, the super strong waterproof tape that can instantly patch, bond, seal, and repair. Flex Tape is no ordinary tape. Its triple thick adhesive virtually welds itself to the surface, instantly stopping the toughest leaks. Leaky pipes can cause major damage, but Flex Tape grips on tight and bonds instantly. Plus, Flex Tape's powerful adhesive is so strong, it even works underwater. Now you can repair leaks in pools and spas without draining them. Flex Tape is perfect for marine, campers, and RVs. Flex Tape is super strong, and once it's on, it holds on tight. And for emergency auto repair, Flex Tape keeps its grip, even in the toughest conditions. big storms can cause big damage. But Flex Tape comes super wide, so you can easily patch large holes. To show you the power of Flex Tape, I sawed this boat in half and repaired it with only Flex Tape. Not only does Flex Tape's powerful adhesive hold the boat together, but it creates a super strong watertight seal, so the inside is completely dry. Yeah, doggy! Just cut, peel, stick, and seal. Imagine everything you can do with the power of Flex Tape. You get a large roll of Flex Tape for just $19.99. Plus, we'll include a handy can of Flex Seal, Flex Shot, or Flex Seal Liquid. Call now.
To order Flex Tape, call 1-800-459-8749. That's 1-800-459-8749, or go to FlexTapeOffer.com. This offer is not available in stores.
It's your first day on the job. Walk in like you own the place. Now at Men's Warehouse, get 3 for $99 dress shirts plus buy one, get one on select items. It's time to like the way you look.
Dogs have evolved, but their nutritional needs remain instinctual. That's why there's Purina One True Instinct. Nutrient-dense, protein-rich, real meat #1. This is a different breed of nutrition. Purina One True Instinct.
This Labor Day at Enterprise Car Sales. Experience great customer service and get more for your trade August 25th through September 5th. And let Enterprise Car Sales flip your thinking about buying your next vehicle.
People would ask me in different countries that we traveled, what is your nationality? And I would always answer Hispanic. So when I got my Ancestry DNA results, it was a shocker. I'm from all nations, and it puts a hunger in your heart to want to know more.
Welcome back. Tracking Hurricane Harvey. In an interview with local affiliate KIII, Rockport Mayor Pro Tem Patrick Rios issued a dire piece of advice to anyone who decided not to evacuate, hoping to ride out the storm at home.
We can't emphasize enough that this is a life-threatening storm. All the advice we can give is get out now. You still have time to leave. Those that are going to stay, it's unfortunate, but they should make some type of preparation to mark their arm with a Sharpie pen, put their Social Security number on it and their name.
Strong words, no doubt about it, coming from the mayor there of Rockport. You know, rightfully so. This system is not one to mess around with. Let's get out to Jim Cantore. He is out in Corpus Christi now. And Jim, just incredible words coming in there from the mayor, but you can't blame him for saying that.
No, you can't. And actually, if you look at things right now, Rockport is going to take the eye wall. They're going to take some of the toughest part of this hurricane, and then they may even get into the eye itself as this moves on off to the northwest. Let me show. I mean, here in Corpus Christi, we will not take the eye wall, and this is fine with people. So this will not be a Celia 2 coming in here, which is a great thing. They had 125 miles an hour back in 1970 with Celia coming ashore as a Category 3. Aransas had a gust to 130 miles per hour. This is already stronger than Celia. All right. It's already stronger than Celia, so we're going to see similar gusts to that level. So, guys, I think what we're getting here, with occasional gusts up to hurricane force, is probably what we're going to see in Corpus Christi. Now, I just sent my producer down across the street. He is going to get some pictures of this Enterprise rent-a-car place where we understand the roof has collapsed. Again, when I see the pictures, when he comes back, he'll let me know exactly what he sees. That's just a report. We'll let you know, obviously. It doesn't appear certainly that there was anybody inside, and that is obviously some very, very good news in there. Alex, we are watching again this center continue to pull on to the north. Could get some gusts over 145 miles per hour with this. We've turned our Torcons up to 8, and that is a pretty high number for Torcons as this thing comes ashore a little bit later on. This will be, again, the first Cat 4 landfall in the United States since Charlie in 2004. It will be the first Cat 4 landfall in Texas since 1961 and Carla. So that's a long time for the coast. And as Mike Seidel was saying earlier, we have seen quite a buildup even on the coast, even though it is sparsely populated in spots. Let's go back to Mike, who's in Port Lavaca right now, to talk a little bit about what he's seeing. And Mike, it's so important you know, certainly to be in a place where you've got at least a barrier island to take down some of those waves. We saw some of the waves offshore today, 25, 30 feet. It would be an absolute disaster if those made it to the coastline.
Indeed, that's much like we saw with Katrina in Mississippi. We were down in Long Beach the next day, and the entire coastline there. You were just down the coast in the Biloxi Gulfport area before that, and the whole coastline was just wiped, leveled about a quarter mile in. I want to show you real quickly. We're going to have to turn the camera back around to keep the rainwater off it. This is the Holiday Inn Express and Suites pool. So it's now, the water has come up over pool level. So we have definite rise, and if you were with us just an hour ago, you know this front yard was mostly visible. Now the water has risen. Here comes the water from Lavaca Bay, and as Jim mentioned, we're not going to get the big waves here. One of the reasons is we're about 25 miles inland. We've got some protection from that kind of wave action because the fetch here is only across Lavaca Bay, which is just several miles. That's over the 35 bridge towards the refinery in Port Comfort. So we don't have that long fetch. That wind blows over the water for a long duration, and that wind energy transfers to the surface and creates the wave action. So the wave action here will be stunted compared to what they're seeing out on the barrier islands, but still the water will be rising. We're going to follow this through this evening and overnight. And the interesting thing will be to see how long the water stays up tomorrow and this weekend, because Hurricane Harvey is not going anywhere. It's starting to slow down already at 8 miles an hour. We expect it'll throw on its brakes as we get into tomorrow and Sunday, and that's going to mean tremendous amounts, catastrophic impacts with inland flooding. Jim, back to you in Corpus Christi.
You know, it's bad enough taking a Category 4 hurricane, but the flood that could ensue after this is absolutely unimaginable, and that is the only word I can think about it. Just looking at the rain gauge that Paul Goodlow set up earlier on, we're no street flooding, looking off of shoreline down into Corpus Christi, which is shaped kind of like a bowl. Waves again in the water blowing offshore here, so that's keeping the water out of the bay here in Corpus Christi. As hurricanes go, this will not be Celia like we had back in 1970. No way, shape, or form. It's going to be a rough night for the coast.
For a limited time, you can get this fresh, juicy Boston Market rotisserie chicken for $1.99 when you buy any family meal. Now, your next few dinners are taken care of. Boston Market.
It's fall. The geese are headed south, and it's time for you to hit the woods. The season is coming fast, so it's time to button things up, find where they hide, and pattern the deer you seek. Because this year, your hours in the blind will last for a lifetime. Cabela's Great Outdoor Days sale and events. Your one stop before the field. Save $70 on select Cabela's Masterbuilt Sportsman Elite Smokers. Shop in-store and online.
Please get to the lowest level.
We have a charge. We have a responsibility.
We have live team coverage tracking.
To provide information to people to help them stay safe.
This weather is affecting people and their relatives across the country.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are scientists, we are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Currently in our area, 77 degrees under sunny skies. Tonight, mainly clear skies. Low 62. Winds southeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Saturday, mostly Saturday night, late night thunderstorms. Low 66. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
For people with heart failure, tomorrow is not a given. But Entresto is a medicine that helps make more tomorrows possible.
Tomorrow, tomorrow.
I love you, tomorrow.
In the largest heart failure study ever, Entresto helped more people stay alive and out of the hospital than a leading heart failure medicine. Women who are pregnant must not take Entresto. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or Aliskir. If you've had angioedema while taking an ACE or ARB medicine, don't take Entresto. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high potassium in your blood.
Tomorrow, tomorrow.
I love you. Tomorrow. Ask your doctor about Entresto and help make tomorrow possible.
You're only a day away.
Everyone has got a dream. You know what I mean?
Hey, is this our turn? Honey, our turn?
Yeah, we go left right here.
Great adventures are still out there. We'll find them in our Subaru Outback.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on all new 2017 Outbacks. Ends August 31st.
More dermatologists recommend Cetaphil for sensitive skin. Its pH-balanced formula cleanses gently for healthy skin. Women recommend Cetaphil because of how it makes them feel. Healthy skin is beautiful. Cetaphil.
And these are the ones. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Honey, 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 honey. At our house, we need things that are built to last. That's why we got a Subaru.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on all new 2017 Legacies. Ends August 31st.
Look, isn't that Frank Thomas?
Oh, the big hurt.
More like the big hunk.
Yeah.
Wow, Frank Thomas.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You look like you could still be playing. That's what I said.
Well, I am feeling stronger and leaner. So, Frank, what's your secret? I discovered Nugenics.
I wish my husband did.
It's easy. Just send a text.
If you're a guy over 40, text 321-321 and enter the word FAN to get a complimentary bottle of award-winning Nugenics, the #1 selling free testosterone booster at GNC. Nugenics is a unique man-boosting formula powered by Testofen, a patented key ingredient clinically researched to help boost your free testosterone levels, to help you feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive, more passion, too.
Here, try a bottle. And trust me, she'll like it, too.
Text 321-321 and enter FAN to get a complimentary bottle of Nugenics. Samples are not available in stores, so text 321-321 and enter FAN.
When the weather turns serious, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I communicate the message very clearly to people so they understand what the risk is and how to get through this?
Good evening from Port Lavaca, Texas. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. Hurricane Harvey, a Category 4, the first one to make landfall in Texas in over 50 years, since 1961. That was Kola. Tonight we will await the worst of it here in Port Lavaca. Meanwhile, the eye wall now pounding the beaches in Aransas County, taking aim for Port Aransas, Aransas Pass, and the city of Rockport. All of those areas have been evacuated. Likewise here. Complete evacuation, curfew underway. We've seen very little traffic. I'm almost certain that most of the 12,000 plus residents here in Port Lavaca have headed north or east out of harm's way, maybe up towards Victoria, but that's not even safe, at least from the wind and the ravaging rainfall of Hurricane Harvey. Already here we've had 3.13 inches of rain today, and we had 7/10 overnight. So far, since late last night, we've had 4 inches of rain, and we've got a long way to go. 4 inches so far. That would be a fair amount in a fast-moving hurricane, but this hurricane is slowing down. Remember, rainfall is inversely proportional to the speed. If you double the speed, you cut the rainfall in half, theoretically. Let's bring in Brian Norcross. Brian, here comes another squall right now, getting pelted by this rain, and you also notice how the water continues to rise here in the front of the Holiday Inn. But real quickly, there's their salvation. The hotel was built way, way up. Concrete, steel, and hardy plank. we're not worried at all about the water rise here in Port Lavaca. We are concerned about what's going to take place around the rest of the area that doesn't have this kind of protection in the hours to come.
Yeah, Mike, I think you're going to need that elevation, because when those winds come around, so that they come around from the south, that is going to push that water up there into Lavaca Bay and out of Matagorda Bay down to the south. All right, take a look at the satellite, and we can clearly see what's happening here. And look at a little, you can see the eye is wobbling a little bit, but it's on a track that is going to take it in that direction. And when the center of the eye comes ashore, that is what's called landfall, and that's going to happen in the next couple hours or so. But the strongest part of the storm on the right side here, you can see there's Port O'Connor. Port Lavaca, where Mike is right there. Victoria, right here. If this continues, all those places are going to get a very, very, very hard hit from this hurricane. And by the way, another Hurricane Hunter plane is going out there because the forward motion slowed down enough that they think they can get through it and do their measurements before it actually goes ashore, going past New Orleans now, heading on toward the hurricane. So here's the close-up shot of the radar, and we see that the eye wall is right there over San Jose Island. So this island here is San Jose Island. This island here is Matagorda Island to the north, and that's Mustang Island to the south. So it's the eye wall is now ashore on San Jose Island, and it's going to go across Aransas Sound and into the Rockport area. Is going to get nailed by this hurricane here, and it is imminent as it moves on in. Let's look at the 3D view, where what the computer does is it looks at the most intense parts of the returns from the radar and then makes them vertical like that. And the higher they are, the more intense they are. And you can see that intense eye wall is just over the barrier island there. We can also see that, let me maneuver this a little bit, and I want to show you where Mike Seidel is there, back in Port O'Connor, and see Port O'Connor there, and then he's in Port Lavaca. So let me show you where that is. That's right there. Okay, keep an eye on that spot there, and then we move this back, and you'll see that there's a band here just outside the eye wall, and another one, and there's a broken one about Port Lavaca right now. So kind of a neat thing that we can use this radar to really see where these enhanced bands are. Now compare that here to Corpus Christi, and you see that the yellows here are well outside of Corpus Christi, and so where Jim Cantore is, these yellows here are going to come around. They're not done with this by any means, but the hurricane is edging slowly farther away from Corpus Christi as it heads a little bit of an angle off to the northeast. So as we saw, so let's reorient you here now. Matagorda Island to the north, San Jose Island to the south. The eye wall of the hurricane is right here. So here's the onshore push of water here, and that is going to push water here into Matagorda Bay, into Aransas Bay, and when the wind direction comes from the south, it's going to push it up toward Port Lavaca, and that's why I say Mike Seidel is going to need that high elevation there, and that's why the National Hurricane Center, see the reds up in here, reds up in here, reds all around here. That's 9 to 12 feet above ground for the water with waves on top of that. Port Lavaca is a high place, so that's why you see the blues kind of under Port Lavaca there. So maybe 1 to 3 feet above ground seems to be the reasonable worst case for Port Lavaca. All right, let's we've talked so much with justification about this imminent landfall, but we cannot forget that this storm is forecast to move very slowly inland, so that it's somewhere in the vicinity, plus or minus, of Victoria tomorrow afternoon. So the idea is this is going to slow down significantly, and this rain is going to continue. That's tomorrow. Now look at this. Still, the model indication is that it's going to stay in this general area of the coastal bend of Texas, maybe up toward Houston. Don't look at the exact line. That's not what's important. What's important is it's going to continue to rain in an area around the hurricane and to the east, and that rain is going to continue, the best that we know, all the way into the middle of next week, and perhaps even more than that. Still forecasting incredible rain amounts, disastrously flooding rain, we think, in Texas. All right, back to Jim Cantore in Corpus Christi. Jim, take it away, top of the hour.
All right, Brian, we got some hurricane force gusts here, and we continue to see the winds now still up 50, 65 miles per hour here. This may be what we're going to get with here in Corpus Christi. Guys, please take the mix minus out of my ear. Please do that if you're back at the Weather Channel. Thank you. All right, stick around, guys. We got much more coming up. Mike Seidel is going to join us as well as we begin a new hour here on the Weather Channel. We're not going to give up with Harvey. We got crews all over Texas and even Louisiana pre-positioned to cover this thing for you as we continue to watch it roll in tonight. Really looking at the radar here, it looks like Rockport is going to absolutely take it on the chin. The last gust we've had at Rockport is 83 miles per hour. 83 miles per hour. They are just about to get in to the eye wall in Rockport as this thing continues to just drift to the north. So moving slow now, as Brian said. It looks like it's going to just make its way inland, maybe as far west as Victoria, which isn't very far west at all. It's about maybe 50 miles or so, if you will, from the coastline, from the exact coastline. But then it takes a turn and starts to head back or drift back, as is in the case and through here. Meanwhile, all these areas start getting rain later tonight. San Antonio, they're already getting in some places. San Antonio, Austin, up in toward Houston area, the Houston metropolitan area getting as well. So we have to watch this. Multiple floods are possible for the city of Houston. We just don't know how this is all going to play out. It's unforecastable by the computer models to tell us exactly where these bands are going to set up. Again, guys, my producer Steve Peterak did go down. And look at the Enterprise. It's right there. The Enterprise roof collapse, as was reported. It's really kind of an awning, it looks like, that has collapsed, a metal awning that has collapsed, as opposed to an entire infrastructure concrete roof. So I wanted to report that to you. That's what we've got. We do have some street signs that have come down as well. We can actually show you some video of that maybe a little bit later on. But you know, think about the wind it takes to push over a street sign, a heavy street sign. It takes a lot of energy. So we've had hurricane force gusts here in Corpus Christi, but this will not be Celia like we had back in 1970 with 125. All right, let's go up the road a piece by about an hour as the crow flies, or as you get on the roads. This is Mike Seidel in Port Lavaca. Mike, I guess the biggest thing that you've noticed is a little increase in the wind, but more of an increase in the water, right?
Yeah, the water is really now piling up here. This is Lavaca Bay out here, and get a sense of these waves now just coming over, and the seawall's just about been covered up. You can't see it anymore. There was plenty of seawall earlier. This is the front patio, and the wind picking up the water off the top of the waves. This whole area now underwater. It'll be interesting to see how high the water does rise. It's already come up at least 2 to 3 feet, I would estimate. That's not official, but estimation. And the rainfall I mentioned earlier, I just added up the rainfall just today alone. Since this morning, we've had about 3.13, if my math is right, 3.13 inches since this morning. We had another 0.7 of an inch last night, so we're almost to 4 inches of rain, and we have got a long way to go. I mean, we've got all night tonight and tomorrow, and then we're going to have rain into the middle part of next week. So you can just imagine the rainfall totals when we've already almost had 4 inches, and we haven't even taken the brunt in those bands around the eye wall, the outer eye wall, where you get the really heavy rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches an hour. The winds here sustained about 35 miles an hour. We've got some protection. I want to show you, I've gotten a lot of text and talk on social media. Be safe. Are you going to be okay? We are. This balcony, we're about 15 to 16 feet above the water level. This hotel was built 6 years ago, and when you build a hotel here in Port Lavaca, near the Gulf of Mexico, right here off the Lavaca Bay, you know you've got to build it sturdy, and they did all they could. This is concrete block here, steel, hard to get a cell phone call out of your room, and then the first level is actually there's no rooms there, and that's hardy plank, and they've got some walls that can blow away, but that's for safety purposes. But there's nothing hanging out here. We don't have any signs hanging that would cause us to be concerned about things blowing around. Now, if you look across Lavaca Bay, there's refineries over there at Port Comfort. I don't know if you can see the lights in the distance, but a sure sign that the power is still on here in this part of Calhoun County, which was under a mandatory evacuation as of late morning. Rainfall now not particularly heavy, but we keep an eye on the radar. And again, the worst is yet to come as far as the heaviest rain and the gusty winds here in Port Lavaca. Jim, Port O'Connor out there on the water on the barrier island, along with Port Aransas Pass, Rockport, all those areas are going to get clobbered, even up towards Palacios. And it'll be interesting to see how high the winds gust in Victoria, because they've already gusted to nearly 50 miles an hour, well ahead of what could be an eye going over Victoria early Saturday morning. Reynolds Wolf will be live on the Weather Channel starting a little after midnight in Victoria. So we'll have the pictures from there. Jim, let me send it back to you in Corpus as we go to darkness here. We get dark here in the area around Port Lavaca. Let's hope the power stays on for everyone tonight, but it seems unlikely that it will.
Michael, we appreciate that report. Again, guys, we're kind of teetering here. We've been very steady, very consistent with 50, 60-mile-per-hour winds, gust occasionally to hurricane force here in Corpus Christi. And this may be some of our worst weather, okay? Especially now as we see the storm heading north. Eye wall looks like it's going to go right in toward Rockport. Let's get the latest on some of the trends that we're seeing with this as this hurricane is going to be making its way ashore. I want to bring in a hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb, to talk about this. Dr. Rick, last night, if you were a betting man, did you think that tonight we'd be talking about a landfalling Cat 4?
Well, we were talking about the possibility because yesterday morning when the forecast from the Hurricane Center changed upward after it rapidly intensified as a tropical storm, and the forecast for tonight was for Cat 3, we were talking last night about the possibility of something a little stronger in Cat 4. So a couple of days ago, certainly weren't expecting this, but yesterday this looked like a distinct possibility.
Right. So what are you seeing now on the radar? I mean, we're starting to get into some of this outer eye wall, aren't we, down around near Rockport and Port Aransas?
Yes, we are. You know, again, the landfall of a hurricane is not the landfall of the outer eye wall. If we look at where the center of the hurricane is, when that crosses the coast, that's when you've got landfall of the hurricane itself. But we do have the northwestern eye wall on land already on San Jose Island, and that is headed toward Rockport. Now, again, the maximum storm surge and the strongest winds might very well be on the right side of the hurricane to the north of wherever it is the dead center comes ashore. So points north from Rockport northward are likely to experience the greatest storm surge. In Corpus Christi, however, on the southern side of the circulation, the storm surge is not going to be as bad as it would be if the center was crossing to your south, Jim.
Dr. Knabb, I was looking at the radar from Radar Scope before I walked out here to do this particular block, and I saw the winds over Rockport at about 2,000 feet, estimated by the radar about 123 miles per hour. How much of that do you think could get down to the surface?
Oh, quite a bit. You know, again, when you look at radar winds, it depends on what altitude the radar beam is striking that band and that area of wind, and then we have to make some adjustments down to the surface. But when you've got maximum winds stronger than that, certainly a lot of that's going to mix down to the surface. And again, I think the strongest winds will be on the right side. And so we probably haven't seen yet the strongest winds we're going to see, the Doppler radar winds from the land-based WSR-88Ds.
All right, let's get into the other side of this. I mean, this is a multi-hazard threat, as we've been talking about for days now. The rainfall has been leading the way all the way, even though that's not, you know, what we're seeing at least imminent right now in terms of flooding, huge widespread flooding everywhere. But that is going to change, Dr. Knabb. When do you expect that to start?
Well, the rainfall is already starting. The storm surge yet hasn't reached its peak. So in both coastal flooding and inland flooding, you know, we haven't reached by any means anywhere near what the peak is going to be. You know, when it comes to the storm surge flooding, it's going to be maximized as the eye wall comes on shore, especially on the right side. And as the storm starts to move farther inland, we will start to see the rainfall rack up farther and farther inland. So points inland, it hasn't started raining yet. It will soon. But if you're in areas where it already has started raining on the coast, this is just the beginning of a multi-day event, Jim. It's really hard to imagine and hard to accept that the rain that is starting now in places like where you're standing, in places between the hurricane and Houston and places inland, that it could rain for days. And as this storm perhaps loops back around and comes back toward the coast, back up toward Houston as the current forecast shows, that means the current landfall area, where we're going to experience landfall here in the next hour or two, probably, it's going to be a place where it's going to be raining for several days into Tuesday or Wednesday.
It really is absolutely unthinkable in through here. Thank you, Dr. Knapp, for your insight. We will check back in with you again. As again, just to kind of recap here, Dr. Knapp talking about the western eye wall coming on shore near the Rockport area here in Corpus Christi. We are not going to see the eye wall. We've seen, if you will, kind of the second and third tier bands out away from that come through, and that has allowed for winds to gust to 75 miles per hour. But we will not see the eye wall here as everything continues to slowly work its way north. And speaking of north, on the northeast side of our hurricane, we have a lot of east wind bringing in big waves and a lot of water. And an area that is going to see some of those waves is certainly Galveston. Thank goodness for that seawall. Mike Bettis is in Galveston tonight to report. Mike, give us an idea. Again, Corpus to Galveston is about a 4.5-hour drive as the crow flies. How different is it there than what we're having here?
I mean, listen, the winds are gusty here, no question about that, but we're certainly not going to deal with in Galveston what you're going to deal with closer to the eye. We're about, as the crow flies, about 150 miles away from the eye of Harvey, okay? Now, I'll give you that. I mean, the palms are blowing right now. There could be opportunities for power outages, but as far as what the seawall can do, it can hold back a lot of water. And since we're such a distance from the center of circulation of Harvey, the good news is the water's just splashing up at the bottom of the seawall, okay? That water would have to come up a solid 12 feet to breach the seawall and then come over the street here. And just voluntary evacuations here in Galveston for Harvey. And actually, there's been a decent amount of traffic this evening. You can see folks are out this evening. They're driving around. A lot of the restaurants and businesses are open. The hotels are open. The city services did close down today. But the one real risk that I think we run here in Galveston is tornadoes. We have a tornado watch that goes through the night, that goes until 2 o'clock tonight, and we've actually had 3 tornado warnings in Galveston today. Brazoria and Galveston County have really, I felt like, been the target for tornadoes. I know that Dr. Knapp is still listening in here. Dr. Knapp, it feels like there's been a real concentration of tornadoes in this small area north of the center. Do you think it stays that way tonight?
Very well could. It's very common for tornadoes to occur in the right front quadrant of a landfalling hurricane, and that's exactly where Houston and Galveston are located. So let's paint the bigger picture first. Here's the center of the hurricane just offshore down on the middle Texas coast. Here's Houston and here's Galveston. Now, if we take a look, here's down near Rockport where the eye is. That's not where the tornadoes are occurring. Let's go up to the Galveston area. Here are those bands coming on shore. They're far, far away from the center of the hurricane, but these bands continue to come on shore, and this is where you can get those quick spin-ups. We've got tornado warnings between Galveston and Freeport, and there's more on the way. So it is not a very safe night to be out on the roads because it might be fooling you when it doesn't rain in between the bands, and then you get this nasty band come in, briefly very heavy rain, and a spin up of a tornado. So we mean business with this tornado watch, and these tornado warnings will probably keep coming.
Hey, Dr. Knapp, I wanted to ask you, in respect to where Mike is, do you think it's possible that he has to wait for a potential, if some of the guidance is right, second landfall if it gains strength to get some of the worst weather up there?
Yeah, we have to pay attention to that very carefully because how much we get up in Houston into early next week, in terms of wind and rain, will have something to do with how much time Harvey spends on land versus how much time it spends on water. We can't take this exact forecast track on this white line to the bank. I mean, if it doesn't go this far inland and it comes back farther offshore, then maybe we could end up with something stronger than the 40 to 45 miles an hour on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But again, I don't want to focus too much on the wind and the strength because regardless, you could have the rainfall totals racking up, whether it's a weak tropical storm, a strong tropical storm, or something else. You could still get the feet of rainfall in Houston. So I hope folks in Houston and Galveston don't start to think that if it isn't as strong as they thought it might be, that the rainfall in inland flood hazard is any less. that's still a very life-threatening situation for days to come.
That's exactly what I'm worried about. Some of these areas that are saying, hey, it isn't so bad. We've got a hurricane coming ashore. They're saying it's going to make landfall tonight, but we're not doing too bad. You know why, guys? Is just like Dr. Nab said, it's going to sit here and spin and turn and make its way back to the north. And all we got to do is think back to 2001. Tropical Storm Allison, sitting, spinning, and dumping very, very heavy rain. All those models are still forecasting unthinkable rain. Nothing has changed.
This Labor Day at Enterprise Car Sales. Experience great customer service and get more for your trade August 25th through September 5th. And let Enterprise Car Sales flip your thinking about buying your next vehicle.
I take pictures of sunrises, but with my back pain, I couldn't sleep and get up in time. Then I found Aleve PM.
Aleve PM is the only one to combine a safe sleep aid plus the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Aleve.
I'm back.
Aleve PM for a better AM.
Managing blood sugar is a series of smart choices. And when you replace one meal or snack a day with Glucerna, made with Carb Steady to help minimize blood sugar spikes, you can really feel it. Now with 30% less carbs and sugars. Glucerna.
Now at the Honda Summer Bration sales event, you can get a great deal on a Honda Accord and make every summer moment that much brighter. Summer fun starts here at the Honda Summer Bration sales event. The sun is setting on these amazing deals. Get a Honda Accord today from KBB.com's Best Value brand. Ends September 5th.
With Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape, you can prep any angle quicker and easier. 3M's advanced poly material helps stop paint seepage, and it's easy to remove in one long pull, so you can pull off a better paint job. Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape.
I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck. Though you make my heart a wreck, make my heart a wreck, and you make my life a mess, make my life a mess, yes, a mess of happiness.
While other insurance companies just see a house, we see the home you've worked really hard for. So why not give it the protection it deserves?
I'm proud of what the Weather Channel is. It's a place you can turn to and trust.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Introducing the all-new DR Leaf and Lawn Vacuum. Now at our lowest price ever. The DR cleans up acres of leaves and grass while you mow. In the spring, collect dead grass, wet leaves, and twigs from storm damage. Come summer, the DR makes a great high-capacity bagger. And in the fall, turn days of raking into a drive in the park. When it's time to unload, nothing could be easier. Look, just one hand. Plus, with the collector top removed, you've got a rugged utility cart that's great for all kinds of hauling chores. The DR is the most powerful, most versatile lawn machine you can buy.
Call 1-800-731-6506 for a free buyer's guide and DVD. Learn how you can qualify for 0% financing and try a DR on your own property for 1 year. Free shipping is now in effect. That's 1-800-731-6506. Online at drleafvac.com.
Every season, every storm, every time you watch, trust in the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 74 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, mostly clear, low 62, winds southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday, a few clouds from time to time, high 86, winds south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday night, late night thunderstorms, low 66, chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
And good evening, everyone. We are in Corpus Christi, Texas, but up to my north, they are awaiting landfall of Category 4 Harvey. The last Category 4 to make landfall in the United States was Charlie back in 2004. So big storm. We are in hour 10, by the way, here in Corpus Christi of at least tropical storm force gusts. All right, so big wind here in terms of the tropical storm force winds. And the fact that this may move north and then come back our way means this may continue for a little bit of a while. Port Aransas has had the highest gust so far at 116. They are getting into the eye wall right now, where we have winds, again, measured by the hurricane hunters, up to about 130 miles per hour, which is from the latest advisory. So this is a wild night here, guys, certainly on the Texas coast. The coastal bend dealing with a lot of water rise in some cases, especially up toward Port O'Connor. Rockport, again, another area besides Port Aransas, taking it on the chin. Victoria, you will see this eventually. Reynolds Wolf is there. We just talked to Mike Bettis in Galveston, and interestingly enough, Mike may have to wait a couple of days, depending on what this thing does, to get some of the worst weather. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. It's just unforecastable to know exactly where some of these bands are going to be setting up. All right, let's get a look at what's happening about an hour to my north. This is Port Lavaca, Texas, and Mike Seidel. Mike, some pretty strong wording, especially in the surrounding counties where you are, for people to leave. And that sounds like it was some pretty good advice, especially if people took it.
Indeed, this is not something you want to mess around with, because even inland areas like Victoria are going to get hit with wind gusts that may be clocked over 80, 90 miles an hour later on tonight, overnight, early morning hours. By the way, Reynolds Wolf will be live all night from Victoria. So we'll be on all night. We'll have pictures to show you what's going on there. That is about 30 miles north of here, and we're about 25 miles from the Gulf. So we're talking about 55 or so miles inland from the Gulf, Victoria. Where we are now, we want to give you a sense of how safe we feel. We're underneath the Holiday Inn Express and Suites here in Port Lavaca. So this whole lower level is elevated, kind of like a giant stilts, if you may. And so there's nothing down here. There's some storage rooms, some equipment rooms, but everything that matters, all the rooms, the offices are upstairs. So you can see how high the water would have to rise, and it would have to go beyond this. It would have to go up about 15 feet. But it's now come around. The tide has come up. I should say tide, the water rise. There's not much of a tide here, about 6 inches from high to low. The water rise, the surge has come up. It's come around the building. And this right here to my left, that's how you drive up and check into the front door. But we may show you that later. And the water flowing into the parking lot. I want to take a run down here. You can see how the water is coming through here, right here under the fence. So you get the flow of water. It's about 4 to 5 inches deep. We've got light here. I want to take you underneath the hotel. Excuse me. And this is how we get inside from underneath and out front. We go up this ramp, and it's also for handicap. And this is the way you drive up. The front is way up there, so you can see how much elevation we have in this hotel. Then we're going to come out here, and as I walk out here, I'm going to lose my wind protection, and it's going to get mighty windy. And when you stand here, I don't know if you can hear it at home, but you can hear the roar, and that's an eerie feeling. You know the winds are picking up that roar around this building. Let's go out here and show you what we've got. I'll keep the Mark Weiser, photographer, stay right here. I'm going to go out into the brunt of the storm and show you what we have. So this is the wind right now, sustained about 35 miles an hour. We got some higher wind gust, and what you can't see, that's Lavaca Bay and the bridge. But we're getting some very heavy rain now, and as I mentioned earlier, we're pushing 4 inches alone, and we're just, we've got a long way to go. So Jim, we're feeling very confident about our safety here. Just have to see how things go overnight tonight.
Dude, you're crunching and scaring the fish.
Dude, they're just jealous.
Kellogg's Raisin Bran Crunch with crunchy clusters and the taste of apples and strawberries.
I got one!
Guess we're having cereal for dinner.
Kellogg's Raisin Bran Crunch Apple Strawberry.
For dry eye relief, doctors may recommend preservative-free drops, but single-dose vials can be a hassle. Try Clear Eyes Pure Relief, the first multi-dose bottle of preservative-free drops, thanks to its purifying filter. Try Clear Eyes Pure Relief.
Coney Island has been around for a long, long time. Reminds me of how Geico has been saving people money for over 75 years.
First date? Hey, big guy, come on in. Let me guess your weight. Win a prize.
Sure, why not?
12 ounces?
Sorry, mate, 4 ounces. I've been taking the stairs lately.
You win, big guy.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Wow, he looks so much more real on TV.
Yeah. Over 75 years of savings and service. Get your rate quote today.
Over 40, feeling tired, losing muscle, and even romantic drive? Man up with Ageless Male. Natural ingredients clinically shown to support energy, promote muscle, and boost free testosterone. Man up with Ageless Male.
Steve was born to move. Over the course of 9 days, he walks 26.2 miles. That's a marathon. Because he chooses to walk whenever he can. And he does it with support from Dr. Scholl's. Only Dr. Scholl's has massaging gel insoles that provide all-day comfort to keep him feeling more energized. So he even has the energy to take the long way home. Keep it up, Steve. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
Today, we're out here with some big news about type 2 diabetes. You have type 2 diabetes, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this. How does diabetes affect your heart?
It doesn't, does it?
Actually, it does. Type 2 diabetes can make you twice as likely to die from a cardiovascular event like a heart attack or stroke. And with heart disease, your risk is even higher. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, but wait, there's good news for adults who have type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Jardiance is the only type 2 diabetes pill with a life-saving cardiovascular benefit. Jardiance is proven to both significantly reduce the chance of dying from a cardiovascular event in adults who have type 2 diabetes and heart diseace and lower your A1C.
Jardiance can cause serious side effects, including dehydration. This may cause you to feel dizzy, faint, or lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Ketoacidosis is a serious side effect that may be fatal. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, and trouble breathing. Stop taking Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of ketoacidosis or an allergic reaction. Symptoms of an allergic reaction include rash, swelling, and difficulty breathing or swallowing. Do not take Jardiance if you are on dialysis or have severe kidney problems. Other side effects are sudden kidney problems, genital yeast infections, increased bad cholesterol, and urinary tract infections, which may be serious. Taking Jardiance with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you have any medical conditions.
So now you know all that, what do you think?
That it's time to think about Jardiance.
Ask your doctor about Jardiance and get to the heart of what matters.
It's been building up over decades. And through 35 years of severe weather, it's strengthened into trust. Trust in the Weather Channel. To us, nothing matters more. Every season, every storm, every time you watch. Trust the Weather Channel.
And good evening, everyone, from Corpus Christi as we continue to await Category 4 hurricane. The first Category 4 for the Texas coast, believe it or not, since Carla in 1961. And it sure feels like a Category 4, not here in Corpus, but just up to my north, especially in Rockport and Aransas. 117-mile-per-hour gusts. All right, let's go up to Mike Seidel in Port Lavaca. Mike, you're starting to get into some of those more intense bands now.
Yes, indeed, Jim. We are standing out now, full brunt of Harvey, the wind coming across Lavaca Bay to my right, the parking lot filling up with water, and the rain stinging me through my jacket and my shirt. Feels more like a sleet storm in Amarillo in January. Boy, it's really roaring in here right now. This is one of those bands. And again, we've got a long way to go. This thing is not moving very fast. It's slowing down as the eye wall now hits the coast of Aransas County. Aransas Pass, the Rockport area, that whole area is getting crushed. That's where you have the strongest winds, the heaviest rainfall, but the real threat is going to be the wind and the structural damage. We've already had gusts up there just over 100 miles an hour. Look at the rain blowing in the light here in Port Lavaca. The power is still on. We're keeping our fingers crossed, but you know, with this kind of wind, and again, all these trees, especially inland with the rain and the wind, easily for them to be uprooted. And the other issue is most hurricanes, tropical storms move in, move out, power crews are in place, they come in, get the bucket trucks back up, and boom, the power's back on, maybe in a few days at most. but this wind's going to stay up, and if they can't get up into their bucket trucks, the power's going to be off for quite a while. Fortunately, it is summertime and not the winter, so you don't have to worry about needing heat or portable heaters and that whole issue. We're going back to Jim Cantori right now. Is that the word? Okay, let's bring in Dr. Knabb, Dr. Rick Knabb, our former Weather Channel hurricane expert, then went to the Hurricane Center, now back, and we're happy to have him with us and his expertise. Dr. Knabb, what are you thinking about here in Port Lavaca about being clipped by the eastern side of the eye wall from Harvey?
Well, I think you're on the side of the hurricane that could bring storm surge into your area. Again, the Port Lavaca itself a little bit elevated, and I'll show you on the potential storm surge flooding map what we think are the hottest spots for the storm surge. But just to orient you, here's Port Lavaca up in here, and the eye of the hurricane down here offshore from Rockport and San Jose Island. So this is the area in which you're going to have really strong onshore flow, and it's not just going to be the barrier islands that experience the storm surge flooding. It's going to be getting into the bays and into areas that are not along the immediate Gulf Coast. So let's take a look at generally what are the storm surge values above normally dry ground. This is inundation, flooding from storm surge that's anticipated. In the Port Lavaca area, points south from there, 9 to 13 feet, and then 6 to 12 feet in Port Lavaca and Matagorda Bay. And those are just the anticipated values, that could be reached somewhere in those areas. Now, to get a little bit more specific, here is the potential storm surge flooding map from the Hurricane Center. Again, here is the immediate Gulf Coast. Here's Port O'Connor, and here we go into the bay that the water will be pushed up bay and going many miles inland from the immediate coastline. Now, if you can tell, Port Lavaca right here, the values aren't nearly as high above normally dry ground in that area because Port Lavaca, the city itself, is slightly elevated. But the values in other places get to be in these orange and reds, 6 to 9 or 9 feet or greater above ground. So it really does have to do with how high the ground gets as it leaves the water, and then how much the wind is able to push the salt water up onto ground, how far inland from the water, the line where it usually is, and then how high above ground. So there are a lot of areas here that are going to get several feet of storm surge because this is going to be the onshore flow side of the hurricane. However, where Jim Cantori is down in Corpus Christi, it's a little bit different story. With him being farther to the south and west, he'll be on the opposite side of where the eye comes ashore, and that puts a lesser storm surge issue to your area, Jim.
Yeah, so what we've been watching, Dr. Knabb, is you've got Nueces Bay and also Corpus Christi Bay behind me here, and the winds have been paralleling and almost a little bit offshore. I mean, the wind's been pushing the water back out, so we never got any kind of a surge component here right along the seawall, which is obviously great news because storm surge, as you know, is an awful thing. But as you mentioned, on the east side, Mike and I are essentially goalposts. All right, so I'm the left goalpost, and Mike is the right goalpost at Port Lavaca. He may take a little bit of the eastern eye wall. I didn't get into the western eye wall at all, and I won't. But we're the goalpost, so it's going to come right up in toward Rockport and Port O'Connor and those areas, and then head in toward Victoria. And there's going to be a lot of changeable weather there. All right, you're going to take winds out of the northeast and very, very gusty, as we've seen already in Port Aransas at 117 miles an hour. And then you get into that eye, and it's an absolutely eerie calm, and I mean, you can hear crickets, you can literally smell. Sometimes if there's a fire, you can smell the fire. All the smoke gets trapped in there, and then you have to deal with the other side of the storm. So winds will shift from the complete opposite direction, and sometimes the back edge eye wall can be even a little bit stronger. Dr. Knabb, do you think we're going to have an equal opportunity for these winds to be strong around the center, or do you think one particular side of the eye wall favors some of those strong winds?
Well, Jim, it's almost always the case that the stronger side of the hurricane is going to be near and to the right of where it comes ashore. And that would be in this area, Rockport area, San Jose Island, and northeastward. But you can have, and we can see some evidence of this on radar, you can have some elements in the eye wall that rotate around, and you can get, especially once the eye starts to, and the eye wall start to interact with land, you can get some convergence that can spin up some strong mesoscale vortices, some smaller scale spin-ups that can ramp up the winds and cause some localized damage on just about any side of the eye wall. Of course, every part of the eye wall is going to have hurricane force winds. It's just a matter of where the strongest winds are, and those would be on the right-hand side, Jim. We're having trouble hearing Jim with all of the wind he's experiencing, and that's understandable given trying to do a live shot from here. But where he is, again, is south and west of where the center of the hurricane is. He's not on the strongest side of the hurricane. Doesn't mean he's not getting strong winds. He certainly is, certainly tropical storm force. And then on the other side of the hurricane, the onshore flow side, the stronger side, this is where Mike Seidel is up in Port Lavaca. He's not on the immediate coastline of the Gulf of Mexico, but he's on a bay in Port Lavaca. And Mike Seidel, what are you experiencing now? We're seeing that the winds are sustained at tropical storm force, and you're on a slightly elevated area compared to surrounding spots. What are you seeing in terms of wind and water?
Dr. Knabb, we've seen the water continuously rise around the hotel, but again, the hotel is built way up, so there's no living space until you get about 16 to 17 feet up above the parking lot, and the parking lot is above a seawall, so we're nicely elevated. We feel very confident we're going to be okay here. We've got a nice, strong, sturdy steel concrete hardy plank building that was built with good specs because it was built 6 years ago, and they're not going to build something on Lavaca Bay in this day and age that can't withstand this kind of weather. Although it's been a long time since they've had a hurricane impact here. 70, we had Celia, but really the locals talk about Kola in 1961. They did have a mandatory evacuation back with Ike 9 years ago, but Ike went north to the Bolivar Peninsula, north of Galveston, and we know what happened there, and they were spared here. Boy, look, can you hear that wind? Woo! And I mean, this is about as strong as we've seen so far. Boy, that had to be pushing 50, 55 miles an hour. Got to keep the center of gravity low. It's the Seidel lean, as they say at the Weather Channel. I don't weigh much. I don't want to blow down the street here, but you can just sense the power of this hurricane as it comes on shore. Now the water is coming up, Dr. Knabb, and it's going to stay up, and the real concern is how long do we stay with the onshore winds? Now Jim's winds are offshore because he's on the other side of the hurricane, but we're going to be onshore winds for a while because it's not moving. Typically a hurricane, tropical storm moves in, moves out, you get the offshore flow, and I saw that with Floyd in 99. I took the eye in Wilmington right on the intercoastal, and the water came in and then it went right back out. So that's not the situation here. This water is going to stay up for a while. Plus you throw on top all this rainwater. So we're getting inundated by seawater and rainwater here in these coastal communities. And I tell you, this wind is really ripping right now here in Port Lavaca. Keep in mind, we're 25 miles from the Gulf, but there's not a lot to slow the wind down because it's all water between here and Port O'Connor and the very warm Gulf of Mexico water temps, mid to upper 80s, helping to fuel a Category 4 hurricane, our first one to make landfall since Kola in 1961. You can try to stay with me here. I still feel safe. You know, you worry about blowing objects, but the only thing that can hit me right now is water. Basically is water. There's nothing upwind for me except some palm fronds, maybe a palm frond or two, but I'm not worried about debris blowing around. But we're really taking this band pretty good right now. Woo! And look at the wave action. But we've got a lot of elevation here. Highway 35 is still fine. That's elevated even higher than we are, and that would be the main route that way back towards Houston should we have to get out of here in the next couple of days. That was one concern I had, was the water would stay up and shut off the exit routes, either US 87 north of Victoria or 35 back towards Palacios. But so far so good, but we have a long way to go, Dr. Nab. And I think we're going to see winds even stronger than this in the next few hours here in Port Lavaca.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to point out a couple things and emphasize a couple points you just made. First of all, you were talking about how you're going to be in onshore flow for a considerable amount of time, and that is absolutely correct, because again, here's the hurricane and the eye wall. Port Lavaca is up here, and as Mike said, many miles from the immediate Gulf Coast. And as this continues to move northwestward and slows down, it's going to keep Mike and Port Lavaca and surrounding areas in the stronger side of the hurricane, the onshore flow side, and you will get the water rise to keep increasing the closer the strongest part of the hurricane gets. So water rise will continue to increase, and the longer the water pushes from the Gulf of Mexico into the bay, the more the water will pile up, even if the hurricane doesn't move a whole lot. Just the continued onshore flow will increase the water levels, and you'll continue to get hours and hours and hours of tropical storm and then hurricane force winds. But Mike, I wanted to ask you, you've got view of the roads there. What is your sense in terms of how many people have gotten out? Do we have any people that you know of that are still in danger in areas prone to storm surge there?
What I think you asked me is about how many people have evacuated. Most of this town is out of here. The people we talked to yesterday were heading out. We saw a lot of folks here on the beaches with campers. They were pulling out to higher ground. We saw a lot of houses and buildings either boarded up or being boarded up last night at dinner time. This town is pretty much emptied out, and for good reason. There's about 12,500 people in Port Lavaca, and this, whoa, we just, something just blew on by. Not sure what that was. Maybe something off the roof, maybe a shingle or something, but I'm pretty certain that this town is pretty empty. After talking to the mayor yesterday and the law enforcement too, they have gone around knocking on doors, trying to get everybody to go. They didn't, you don't have to leave, and if you didn't leave, they, requested that they have contact information next to kin in that matter. But again, the roadway 35 is still fine. The water has not come up that high, and get a sense here, we're 3 or 4 inches of water here in the parking lot. And the waves over the seawall in the front, we'll go back around front at sometime this evening, around towards the bay, and show you what it looks like there. But again, the hotel built way up here, but this wind now is unrelenting. It certainly has ramped up, sustained now 40 to 45 miles an hour. Some of those gusts, boy, they just cut right through you, Dr. Nab. I would suspect some of these gusts now have pushed at least 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, and Mike, I can show folks.
Only to get worse here as the storm crawls onshore tonight and Saturday morning.
Yep, and we can see the radar combined with the wind observations. Of course, these are just point observations. This doesn't represent what everybody's getting, but we are seeing gusts around 50 miles per hour in Port Lavaca, sustained at tropical storm force. Closer to the Gulf beaches, the gusts are up at 65 miles an hour at Port O'Connor, and this is an outer band as compared to the eye wall. So what Mike is experiencing is not the eye wall, but he's experiencing a very strong band that obviously has sustained winds of tropical storm force, and those winds will get stronger as this part of the band makes its way up to Port Lavaca as the hurricane comes ashore. Now again, on the southwestern and western side where Jim Cantori is, he's getting sustained winds of tropical storm force there too. It just won't be on the strongest side. Jim, how's it looking to you there right now?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally we'll get some heavy downpours, and those winds will just push you and pound down on you. I mean, we're easily into the 50s, 60s here with these gusts. Our max gust, I think, is about 75 miles an hour at the Naval Air Station. But Dr. Nab, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the hurricane hunters, how long do they fly into the center? How long do they make a pass into the center? Is it right before landfall or just before?
Well, typically they'll keep flying in and out of it as long as the center is offshore, and they may even continue to fly parts of the eye wall that are offshore. It's still important to continue to get data on how strong the hurricane is, how large the wind field is, because we know that this is not the end of the event. when the center of the hurricane comes ashore. This is very much the beginning of the event in many ways, and we still have to make 5-day forecasts from the Hurricane Center, and the Hurricane Hunter data feeds into that. And sometimes, especially when you've got bays involved, they can follow the center a little bit after it crosses a barrier island if they feel they can do it safely, but they're not going to follow it way inland.
Is there any plan to sample the atmosphere a little more than normal over the next several days, with maybe drops, balloons from Weather Service offices to get an idea of what the atmosphere is, especially in the intermediate runs?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, the Weather Service forecast offices around the country send out more frequent, instead of twice a day, 4 times a day, upper air balloon launches, and that will continue to be a beneficial thing to do, not just for getting more data into the models in the days to come, but for the humans to get more frequent observations about what the structure is in the atmosphere, because we still got many days ahead, and that data at the beginning of the forecast process can help make that 5-day forecast more accurate. We need to know how much more we've got to deal with, but we already know the general scenario, that it's going to meander for days to come, and we've not talked for a few minutes here about the heavy rainfall, but that is still something we got to remind everybody of, that this is going to move very slowly. Even where you are, Jim, in Corpus Christi, this will meander close enough to you that it could rain for days there.
Doc, have you ever seen, and I know you've been doing this a while, a rainfall forecast for Houston in the 15 to 25 inch range? Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, not my time at the Hurricane Center and communicating about these events. This is really something to be seeing rainfall totals that we are. In a forecast sense, to be seeing not just inches of rain, but feet. I mean, look, this is an incredible rainfall forecast graphic. I mean, one thing that is remarkable about it is we're talking about, here we are on a Friday night, and we're talking about how much rain's going to fall through next Wednesday. And we haven't seen colors on a Weather Channel graphic like this in a long time, where we got 30 inches, and it could exceed that in isolated spots. This really is, in many ways, an unprecedented event that is about to unfold.
But still, in terms of forecasting exact amounts, where the bands are going to set up, that's really beyond our capability, isn't it?
It definitely is. I mean, this gives you a general sense of what's going to happen, but the actual rainfall totals, where the bullseyes will line up, will depend on what exactly the track is. And just don't look at just the forecast track. And remember, this isn't just a point on the map. It's where the band's set up, where the training is, where things far from the circulation center might set up. You could get devastating rainfall totals 100, 200 miles away from the center of circulation.
Exactly. Dr. Knabb, we appreciate that. I always appreciate your insight. Guys, stick around. Much more to come as we continue to watch the eye wall of Hurricane Harvey. The last time we had a Cat 4 on the Texas coast.
Parodontax, the toothpaste that helps prevent bleeding gums. If you spit blood when you brush or floss, you may have gum problems and could be on the journey to much worse. Help stop the journey of gum disease. Try Parodontax toothpaste.
Gentlemen, Beggin' Skinny Strips or Beggin' Black Label?
This too?
What a delicious dilemma! Beggin' Strips Premium Edition. With real meat as ingredient 1. Everything to your liking. Beggin' Strips Premium.
Because Beggin'!
Please get to the lowest level.
We have a charge. We have a responsibility.
We have live team coverage tracking.
To provide information to people to help them stay safe.
This weather is affecting people and their relatives across the country.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are scientists, we are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Currently in our area, 72 degrees under clear skies. Tonight, mostly clear, low 62, winds southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday, a few clouds. Saturday night, late night thunderstorms, low 66, chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
I take pictures of sunrises, but with my back pain, I couldn't sleep and get up in time. Then I found Aleve PM.
Aleve PM is the only one to combine a safe sleep aid plus the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Aleve.
I'm back.
Aleve PM for a better AM.
Children's Claritin is the only brand that provides 24-hour non-drowsy allergy relief products.
Plus, it's the #1 pediatrician-recommended non-drowsy brand. Gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Constipated? Fleet Liquid Glycerin is delivered straight to the source, so it delivers constipation relief in as little as 15 minutes. Dulcolax oral tablets can take 6 hours to work. Fleet Liquid Glycerin Suppositories, the start of fast relief.
Introducing Cologuard.
I'm here for an important reason. Colon cancer screening. If you're age 50 or older and at average risk, Cologuard finds cancer and precancer. And it's a non-invasive test you can use at home. In fact, I'm as easy as get, go, gone. How do you get me? Your doctor orders me, and I'm delivered directly to your doorstep. There's no need for time off or special prep because I use the DNA in your stool to find colon cancer. Then you just go. I mean, collect your sample. Then I'm gone. Just ship me to the lab. Gotta go.
Cologuard is intended for individuals at average risk for colon cancer. Cologuard is not for high-risk individuals, including those with a history of colon cancer or polyps, IBD, certain hereditary cancer syndromes, or family history of colon cancer. Cologuard, colon cancer screening that's as easy as get, go, gone. Ask your doctor if Cologuard is right for you.
Could be my love, even if the sky is falling down. I know that we'll be safe and sound.
So many Americans struggle with finances. Starting today, State Farm is here to help, giving us all the chance to simply sit down and learn. Visit letstarttoday.com or talk to an agent.
We're safe and sound.
Look, isn't that Frank Thomas?
Oh, the big hurt.
More like the big hunk.
Yeah.
Wow, Frank Thomas.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You look like you could still be playing. That's what I said.
Well, I am feeling stronger and leaner. So, Frank, what's your secret? I discovered Nugenics.
I wish my husband did.
It's easy. Just send a text.
If you're a guy over 40, text 321-321 and enter the word FAN to get a complimentary bottle of award-winning Nugenics, the #1 selling free testosterone booster at GNC. Nugenics is a unique man-boosting formula powered by Testofen, a patented key ingredient clinically researched to help boost your free testosterone levels, to help you feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive, more passion, too.
Here, try a bottle. And trust me, she'll like it, too.
Text 321-321 and enter FAN to get a complimentary bottle of Nugenics. Samples are not available in stores, so text 321-321 and enter FAN.
When the weather turns serious, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I communicate the message very clearly to people so they understand what the risk is and how to get through this?
Our continuing coverage of Harvey continues tonight. Myself here in Corpus Christi. Mike Seidel, on the left goalpost, by the way. Mike Seidel is in Port Lavaca. He is the right goalpost. Our little friend Harvey is going to go right up in between as a Category 4 hurricane making landfall probably within the next hour or two here. Dr. Rick Knabb, our hurricane expert, is here, of course, watching all that for us. Our largest, I should say, highest gust right now, Port Aransas at 118 miles per hour. I'm being told that we may see another extreme wind warning come out. What that is a statement from the Weather Service that talks about winds that could gust, especially in this case, 115 to 145. We understand that is just issued. I do not believe, and I probably would think that Corpus Christi is not going to be in that, but certainly areas like Freeport and Rockport, Port O'Connor, maybe, the immediate coastline certainly will be in that. And with the eye wall coming ashore, that would certainly be expected. As a matter of fact, we could see sustained winds well over 100 miles per hour as we have a Category 4 hurricane, our first in 56 years, approaching the coast. Our coverage again, guys, of Harvey continues. We've had hurricane force gusts here in Corpus Christi, and we've had now about 11 hours of at least tropical storm force wind gusts. And those winds are going to continue probably for a good part of the night. So even though we're not in the eye wall, this thing has a heck of a wind field, and being the fact that it's strong enough, it's going to hold that wind field for a while here before it moves on shore. All right, I want to bring in our hurricane specialist, Dr. Rick Knabb, to talk about this. Dr. Knabb, if you could, since I mentioned the goalposts of Mike and I, if you could say where the field goal is going to go, i.e. the eye, and making landfall, where do you think that point would be?
Yeah, Jim, I think that's going to be maybe on San Luis Island, and this is going to be the barrier island across from Rockport. And you mentioned the extreme wind warning a little bit ago. That has been, again, issued by the National Weather Service local forecast offices. This is a new capability post-Hurricane Charlie that is a shorter fuse warning than the broader hurricane warning that is intended to tell people to take final internal shelter like you would for a tornado, for the winds of a major hurricane, for major hurricane force winds. And that is now in effect in this purple area that you see here for Aransas, Calhoun, Refugio counties. That includes the cities of Aransas Pass, Ingleside, and Rockport. It does not include where Jim is in Corpus Christi, but that is because, as Jim was asking, the field goal is being kicked, as it were, by Hurricane Harvey in between Corpus Christi and Port Lavaca. That's where the center is going to be going, Jim.
Hey, Doc, I want to ask you something regarding this. Great analogy with a tornado warning, but unlike a tornado warning, this isn't going to be for 15 or 20 minutes. This is going to be much longer. And could we see a scenario where, as they go through the eye and then get on the backside, we see another extreme wind warning, but winds from the other direction?
That is entirely possible if the anticipation is that major hurricane force winds are going to extend beyond 11:45 p.m. Central Time. That's the current extent time period wise for the current extreme wind warning, but these hurricanes don't always continue to move as fast as we anticipate, especially near landfall. They can wobble, they can stop, and then start again. So these short fuse warnings are to alert people to take shelter or to continue to take shelter from major hurricane force winds. They'll keep issuing these as long as those conditions are still anticipated.
And if you are sheltering at home, guys, and you do get into that eye where it is eerily calm, don't forget, please don't forget that you will deal with the backside of that storm. Whether it's as strong or not, you're still going to deal with the backside of the storm. Earlier today, again, Governor Abbott asking the president for a disaster declaration. We understand that has been signed by the president. He's got 30 counties in that. We could see more or less added to that, depending on how this whole thing shakes out. But President Trump has signed a disaster declaration for the state of Texas for Governor Abbott. All right, let's go up north into Mike Bettis. Mike, I was thinking earlier, especially given this wild track, Mike is in Galveston, by the way, I'm wondering if especially if this kind of holds together and maybe bumps up a little bit if it goes over the water, that you may have to wait a couple of days before you may see the worst weather with this. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very possible. It's very possible, Jim. I know you know this is going to make a landfall tonight, and even though we're 150 miles from the center, and maybe the worst of the storm is not hitting us, and that's perfectly okay, there may be still a disaster in the making days from now. Now, right now, we're getting hammered with a thunderstorm. All day long, we've had these outer bands hit us, and in fact, we're still under a tornado watch here until 2 o'clock tonight. We've had 3 different tornado warnings issued in Galveston today, so take that threat very, very seriously. And then on top of that, you're going to have opportunity for some of these thunderstorms to bring in some high winds, and you may knock out some power in some instances. So be prepared to lose power this evening. with these winds that blow in tonight. Make sure that you've got flashlights ready to go. Everything's already plugged in and charged up so that you've got your cell phone ready to go. You've got laptops ready to go. And if you're running a generator tonight, make sure that you've got gas for it and that it's outside. Don't run that generator in your carport or in your garage. Make sure it's outside. Make sure it's properly vented. We are getting hammered right now with a thunderstorm that may be one of the strongest we've had so far today. The rainfall rates with some of these thunderstorms have been pretty incredible, upwards of 2 inches an hour. Now, they're not sticking around for that amount of time. A lot of these thunderstorms in these outer bands are quick movers because they're moving 40, 50 miles an hour. So if you have a tornado embedded within one of those thunderstorms, it's going to move fast. It's going to be rain wrapped. You're not going to see it. It's dark now. There's no way it's going to be detected by anything other than a Doppler radar. So be prepared. I would say especially if you live to the right of the eye tonight. So if you live in Galveston, if you live in Houston, if you live in Surfside, you live in Lake Jackson, these are all areas where you do run that risk of tornadoes, and be prepared to take shelter. Lowest level of your home, interior room, put walls between you and the danger, okay? And then when you have heavy rain like this, and we already saw it today here in Galveston,
Did we lose Mike, guys? Did we lose Mike with rain fade? Okay, guys, the reason why we lost Mike is rain fade. It's raining so hard where he is that the signal can't get up through the rain. It's blocking the signal. It's dispersing it as opposed to keeping it solid to get up to the satellite. So Mike is obviously in very, very heavy rain right now, heavier than even what I'm seeing here in Corpus Christi. So all that is the front side of the system. We are on the back side again, as the center is to our north between myself and Mike Seidel in Port Lavaca. Stick around too later on tonight. Reynolds Wolf is in Victoria, and so he may actually deal with, I think he will deal with the eye wall and maybe even the eye itself, depending on where this is going to track as we go on in time. Just got new word. Catherine Prost tells me Port Aransas gusting to 120 miles per hour now. All right, so we've easily had here well into the Cat 3 range in terms of the gusts as this thing is coming shore. Again, a Category 4 hurricane moving ashore as we speak. Dr. Nab, I want to talk to you a little bit about this thing in terms of where it goes once it hits the barrier island. Does Victoria have a chance to deal with a long period of these very strong hurricane force winds? Maybe not 120, but certainly the fact that as it goes north, it will slow down even further, right?
Yes, and we've been talking for a couple days now how about this is not going to be just a coastal event, and because you've got such a strong hurricane coming ashore, hurricane force winds are going to penetrate well inland. It's not just going to be at the beach. And so here's the center of the hurricane just offshore from Rockport, and it's going to be making landfall soon. And if you look at the areas to the right of the landfall and propagate that inland, Port O'Connor, Port Lavaca, Victoria are going to be on the dirty side, on the stronger side of the hurricane. They're getting gusts already in Victoria up to 52 miles per hour. That's just a taste of things to come, because this is going to be coming inland, and their winds will increase as the night goes on, and you could get stronger winds in some places inland that are on the stronger side than some coastal places are getting that are on the weaker side, Jim.
Dr. Nab, I was just asking Catherine about what's, I wanted to look at some of these bigger cities because I haven't had just look at the radar that far inland. What's happening right now in like San Antonio, in Austin, in Houston? The same band that Mike's getting, especially given the way it's moving, could that come into Houston, or is it staying to their south?
Yeah, I'm taking the wide shot of Harvey right now with the 9 p.m. Central Time particulars, with the center still just offshore. Look at what is happening up to the north and east, far away from the eye of Harvey. Some really strong rain bands coming in south of Houston, and there's that band that is bringing the very heavy rain locally to Galveston, where you saw from Mike Bettis earlier. And now you're getting the northern extent of the rain shield extending up into the hill country towards San Antonio and Austin. And you might be thinking in places in between Port Lavaca and Houston, that are relatively dry at the moment that, oh, okay, this isn't so bad, but you're just in kind of a moat in between some of the bands. Your dry weather is not going to stay that way, and sometimes you'll get some really nasty bands far away from the center, then it gets dry for a little while, then the bands are going to come back. So don't go out driving on the roads when you have these intermittent breaks in the bands. Mike?
Right. Dr. Knapp, I'm going to take it from here. Let's go. We're going to go up to Mike's Hill right now in Port Lavaca. Again, as I've been telling you about, on the left goalpost, Mike's on the right side. That's where, of course, the hurricane is right in the middle of all this. Mike's winds are on. He's dealing with a lot more problems with the water. Mike, what have you seen in terms of water rise? I know it's nightfall now, but can you tell the water is still coming up where you are?
Yes, it's still coming up. It is hard to see, but the parking lot continues to fill up here. We're going to go around back eventually and see how the water's risen on the back side of the hotel. That's the side closest to Port Lavaca or the Lavaca Bay. And I emphasize we're 25 miles or so as the crow flies from the Gulf, and for Port O'Connor, another town that's going to get raked pretty good. Not that it already hasn't. And we're also talking out the Port Aransas area, all of Aransas County, San Patricio County. Those are the two counties north of Corpus Christi, which is Nueces County, and then inland. Reynolds Wolf will be on the Weather Channel all night tonight from Victoria, Texas, and that's 30 miles from where we are. And we're 20 miles from the 25 miles in from the barrier island. So we're talking 55 miles plus or minus in Victoria. Reynolds is going to be on all night. He actually may not only take the eye wall, maybe the eye of Hurricane Harvey. And this thing is slowing down. So the story is going to be, how long does this water stay up as we go through tonight and tomorrow? Because, as you know, we've been talking about it for a couple of days. This is going to slow down, and it's not going to just wind down. It's going to take days, and it may actually come back over the Gulf and re-intensify and come back at us the middle of next week. We hope the models are wrong, but we have to prepare for the worst. Even if that doesn't happen, we're still going to have catastrophic amounts of rainfall. There goes a pretty good gust. That'll blow you off your feet. And with that rainfall coming into the river basins like the Nueces River, that's all going to have to run downstream at some point back here into the Gulf of Mexico. So a whole litany of problems inland once we get the winds to go away. And I've mentioned this before, we're going to have widespread power outages. Our power is still on here, thank goodness. We'll see how that lasts. Hopefully nobody loses power where you are. We're keeping our fingers crossed. But, you know, the power crews are in position, and they can't get up in the bucket trucks and get things back on if they have to go up. Not until the winds die down, and these winds are just not going to go away like in a typical hurricane or tropical storm that comes up the coast, comes in and goes away. Either goes in and dissipates due to friction, or goes out to sea off the, say, the Outer Banks, like we saw last year with Matthew. So this is a long-term event, Jim, as you know, and we are really getting battered down here with this wind right now. These sustained winds are running in the 40s, and we've gusted upwards of 60 or so. And as you know, based on the radar, we still have a long way to go. We may actually take the far eastern edge of the eye wall of Harvey later on tonight and early on Saturday morning. Jim, we'll throw it back to you in Corpus. And hang on, buddy.
What's interesting, Mike, is it's going to be interesting to see how long that you take the tropical storm force gusts. We're on, I believe, hour 11 now of the gusts here. The difference is we're getting the wind from a different direction. You're going to get it off the water, so you actually have a better chance of having them be a little bit longer, especially with a hurricane that's coming inland, slowing down a little bit and kind of keeping you on that right side. So Mike is in for a prolonged period of at least tropical storm force gust there where he is at Port Lavaca. Again, guys, if you're just joining us, Port Aransas really taking it right now with the eye wall, 120 miles per hour from our last report that we have for you. And this is now about an hour's worth of gusts that they've had, at least over 100 miles per hour. So tremendous wind energy working its way into the Port Aransas area. Places like Rockport, as get to the far outer band of this is dealing with some very heavy thunderstorms. Like this, a while ago in Galveston, because of the rain fade, it's coming down so hard. I would think.
Yeah, Jim, you know, it's amazing when those thunderstorms come in, just how nasty the weather gets, and it goes down in a hurry, right? But they don't last that long. A lot of those thunderstorms are little clusters, lines of clusters, okay? Just think of it that way. They last for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and then they're gone. But embedded within some of those thunderstorms, you can end up getting the possibility of some tornadoes. And actually, even off in the distance, where there's been a longer line of storms just to our south, we've seen lightning with a lot of these thunderstorm bands. So don't be fooled and think, okay, we're done here in Galveston. The eye is well to our south. We have no risk here. We certainly do have a risk in Galveston. You don't want to be outside, you know, maybe thinking, okay, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to check things out, and next thing you know, you've got a big thunderstorm with 60 or 70 mile-an-hour winds that's throwing debris in the air, or it's knocking down trees. Be prepared that tonight you might end up losing power because of some of these thunderstorms, and they could even have tornadoes, and we have a tornado watch in effect. Remember, things that you might need tonight. Don't forget the flashlight, okay? You're gonna need one of these, multiple flashlights. If you can, put one on every level of your home. Make sure everything's charged up and plugged in right now if you have power, so everything's good to go in case the juice goes out for you tonight. And if you're running that generator, just be good about that, okay? No carports, don't put it in the garage. It's gotta be outside and well ventilated so that you're not getting those fumes and that exhaust into your home and suffering carbon monoxide poisoning, because that's not how we want this to go, all right? We want everyone to be safe when it comes to this hurricane. Winds have actually been very steady this afternoon for the last several hours. It's actually with my anemometer here. They've been steady over 30 miles an hour, but measured against as high as 52. And I want to take you back out here, by the way, to Seawall. This is the road that's right before the seawall, okay? Come on out here. We've got a beautiful hotel, by the way, that keeps us well sheltered from the storm. The San Luis Resort is it goes way up, by the way, and so there's no chance that you're going to get storm surge there. But keep in mind, on the other side of the road there is the Gulf of Mexico, okay? And it drops straight down to the seawall, okay? So they built a big seawall after the 1900 hurricane to protect the city, and the city's actually elevated about 15 feet or so from that seawall. And so the water's just now coming to the bottom of that seawall, okay? And I'll hold up my anemometer. I want you to check the top number on that, all right? That's the wind right now. It's going pretty good right now. There's about 36. So, you know, sometimes you're going to get these gusts that are going to be pretty tough. So just be prepared for that tonight, because there'll be opportunities for power outages. Tornado watch until 2 o'clock. All right? So make sure to get alerted. If you have your phone, turn on the alerts, because you'll get the automatic tornado alerts on your phone. It's a new government service, or you can subscribe to a lot of different apps. Many apps that are free. The Weather Channel app will do it. The Weather Underground app will do it for you. The Red Cross app will alert you to tornadoes. Or if you got a weather radio, use that as well. Put it in alert mode, go to bed. It'll beep and alert you. Actually be a very loud siren when that tornado warning is issued. So Jim, you know, again, the thing about it is this: don't in Galveston think it's over for you, okay? Because this is making landfall tonight. We've got days and days and days to go. We think at minimum a foot of rain is coming our way, and the flooding is just going to begin.
Yeah, buddy, you're in it for the long haul. It doesn't help getting those heavy thunderstorms. Certainly, that just gets everything wet, gets any kind of waterway full of water already. All right, guys. So breaking news now. We do have reports out of Port Aransas of 125 mile per hour gusts. 125 mile per hour gusts in Port Aransas. They are taking the eye wall, the left eye wall. It is moving toward them now. The Hurricane Center expects landfall within an hour. All right. You can bet with 125 mile per hour winds, there is strong. I mean, they've been now with over 100 with gusts for an hour, or at least an hour. So that's tremendous wind energy, and you can bet there's structural damage that's going to occur with that. Lots of problems here, guys. Rockport, right in that same area. Thank goodness for that mandatory evacuation, and I hope everybody heeded that, because it is going to be one heck of a scary night. Again, just to kind of recap for you here, guys, we are watching Hurricane Harvey, a Category 4 hurricane, work its way onshore, perhaps within an hour, making landfall somewhere near the Rockport area. We don't know. Port Aransas. Let's get an idea of where we think this is going. Dr. Knapp, in terms of the speed, do you see this slowing even more so now that it's approaching the coast?
Well, it's often difficult to anticipate landfalling hurricanes whether or not they're going to maintain a constant forward speed. Sometimes they start and stop and wobble a bit, but it has been making a pretty steady northwestward motion.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, and so the hurricane has been making a pretty steady forward motion, and with the landfall of the center not yet having happened, we've had already the northwestern eye wall on shore. And you can see we've got our guys up and down the coastline. Jim Cantori down there in Corpus Christi, and Mike Seidel here in Port Lavaca, and Mike Bettis up in Galveston. And so you three guys are experiencing three very different parts of the hurricane. Mike Bettis has been getting those outer bands, the tornado warnings, the intermittent downbursts, and then Mike is on the stronger side of the hurricane where the water rise is going to continue to increase, and then Jim Cantori in Corpus Christi is on the weaker side but still getting tropical storm conditions. And all of you are going to be getting heavy rainfall for days to come, some of you off and on, but in Port Lavaca, that's the area where Mike Seidel is, that is the area of greatest concern, because that is going to be an area of onshore flow, and then we've got the area kind of in between Mike Seidel and Jim Cantori that are under the extreme wind warning, as the eye wall has already come on shore and the eye itself about to make landfall. So we will continue providing you coverage here on the Weather Channel as Harvey gets closer to landfall.
Clear?
These guys are just running behind.
Okay, so the eye wall is moving on shore. Harvey's center hasn't yet quite crossed the coastline, but it is about to do so. But again, the weather has already become bad. The center of the hurricane is not always the center of action, and there's a lot of bad weather happening at the coast and inland for dozens to hundreds of miles away from the center of circulation. So let's kind of recap what the major hazards are and where they are occurring. First of all, with a landfalling major hurricane, the major hurricane force winds are already impacting land. There already is an extreme wind warning in effect issued by the local National Weather Service Forecast Office. This is different from the hurricane warning that was issued by the Hurricane Center in collaboration with the local offices a day and a half ago. To highlight the overall areas that could receive hurricane force winds. The purpose of the extreme wind warning is to tell people where you could get major hurricane force winds, and the action is similar to taking shelter from a tornado. It's to take your final, best, safest shelter, the most interior part of a structure, because winds of major hurricane strength, Category 3 or stronger, are anticipated in these areas. And it includes the counties of Aransas, Calhoun, and Refugio, cities Aransas Pass, Ingleside, and Rockport. And again, Rockport is right here on the opposite side of the bay from the outer barrier islands. And so these major hurricane force winds are not just impacting the beach. This is not just an immediate coastal event. Now, obviously, on the right side of the hurricane, that's where the strongest onshore flow is occurring. So you're getting the stronger winds on that right-hand side, and we're already seeing both near the coast and farther inland very strong winds, sustained winds of tropical storm force, gusts much higher than that. So, for example, where Mike Seidel is in Port Lavaca on the right-hand side of the storm and inland by several miles from the immediate Gulf Coast, he's been getting gusts near 50 miles per hour and some very heavy rain, and that's on the way up. So, Mike Seidel, what are you experiencing? Has it been getting worse where you are?
It has, Dr. Knapp, and I've been checking the ob at the nearby airport, and it's still not reporting gusts a few minutes ago more than about 50 miles an hour. I know we've had gusts higher than that. It's been unrelenting now for the past hour, not only the wind but the rain, and you can see the surge and the water rise through the parking lot here at the Holiday Inn Express. Looking out on Texas Route 35, things are fine. It's certainly the water hasn't come up high enough yet, and it's even higher than where we're standing in the hotel parking lot. So far so good on 35. But again, we're going to have onshore flow for hours, and we haven't gotten the worst of the wind and the water rise. The big question is, how long does the water stay up? tomorrow and tomorrow night. This is not a typical hurricane where it comes in and goes by and the sun comes out and the wind goes offshore. Now, with that said, the good news to note tonight in Corpus Christi is the wind is offshore where Jim Cantori is, so that certainly helps out on the water rise. They won't have the water rise certainly to the left of where the center comes on shore, but you can feel the wind. Can you hear it at home? It's just roaring through here. I am not, by the way, I am not between two buildings. This is the real deal. This is not fake wind. This is real. We're not getting the channeling effect between buildings, the canyon effect like you see in big cities like New York on a windy day. This is the wind coming right off Lavaca Bay. The whole front part of the hotel, or I should say the back of the hotel on the bay, that whole area is underwater. We're going to go back there at some point and see how much the water's come up, but that was all dry earlier, and there's about a 6 to 8 foot seawall, and that is already underwater. So it gives you an idea of how high the water's come up so far with the approach of Hurricane Harvey. This whole town has pretty much evacuated to higher ground. The official elevation here in Port Lavaca is 16 feet, and as I've been noting for a couple of days, Dr. Knapp mentioned it, we're about 25 miles directly inland from the Gulf. So we're not on the Gulf, we're not at a barrier island, thank goodness. We knew better than that. We got to be safety first, and we're very safe here in this hotel. It's well constructed. It was built 6 years ago, and we're on higher ground, but we knew better than to be out at Aransas, on Aransas County's beaches, Aransas Pass, that area, even Rockport, which is just inland from the actual Gulf Coast. But that wind is just roaring through here right now. Wow. And the rain, too, adding up over 4 inches of rain so far from Hurricane Harvey. And remember, these totals are going to add up to inland. Even though you're not going to get some of this wind, like in San Antonio and Austin, you won't have this kind of wind. Some of these areas will pick up double-digit rainfall totals even well away from the center. About the only big city in Texas that's not going to be hit directly by Harvey is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Not to say you won't get some rain, but that's the only city really out of the zone at this point. Dr. Knapp, a long night ahead of us. The roar of the wind continues to pick up, and just really want to see how long this water stays up tomorrow, how long we have this onshore wind, and how strong the winds are, because National Hurricane Center has this as a tropical storm, I believe, now through most of the weekend. Dr. Knapp?
Yeah, so let's talk about how things are going to evolve where you are, Mike. And this is a really good example location, Port Lavaca, to highlight a number of things. First of all, he's, again, 25 miles from the immediate beach on the Gulf of Mexico, but he's already getting sustained winds of tropical storm force, gusts up near 50, and he's going to continue to be on the stronger side of the hurricane as it comes ashore. Now, the center circulation is just offshore. It hasn't come ashore yet, so we don't have the landfall of the center of the hurricane just yet, but the eye wall is already on shore, and there are already strong bands, not the eye wall itself, but a pretty strong band that is moving its way through Port Lavaca. But what it's also doing, in addition to bringing the heavy rain and the strong winds, which will increase as the hurricane comes ashore and you'll get closer to the center, but it is pushing the water from the Gulf of Mexico into the bays. And if I switch over to the storm surge graphic, again, this is to the northeast of where the hurricane's center is going to come ashore. So it's all onshore flow here, and the water from the Gulf of Mexico doesn't just stop at these barrier islands. It continues to be pushed up into the bays, into Lavaca Bay, and where Mike Seidel is up in here, Port Lavaca. Now, he mentioned their elevation is several feet, maybe about 16 feet where he's located, above sea level, but what's happening, and when you look at this graphic, is this is how high the storm surge flooding could get above normally dry ground. And this is a major hurricane capable of pushing the water quite a ways inland and creating water depths over normally dry ground that in these orange areas are 6 to 9 feet, and in the red areas surrounding Port Lavaca, Mike, above 9 feet high above normally dry ground. A very distinct possibility, and I'm glad to hear what you've been telling me about people having evacuated, Mike. Yeah, Mike Seidel, can you still hear us? We're talking about the water rise that's probably going to continue to be on the increase in Port Lavaca and the surrounding areas. It looks like you're standing in some water, but not nearly as deep as what will be in other areas around you that are not as high of an elevation.
Okay, Dr. Neff, it's hard to hear you. I'm sorry if I missed your toss out here to the field, so my apologies, but the wind now sustained above tropical storm force. That's 39 miles an hour, and we are gusting easily to 60 miles an hour or more. It really takes it out of you, to keep your ground. It's a good quadricep workout to keep your ground here. The water continuing to come into the parking lot, but we can still see the curb behind me. So, the water isn't rising dramatically. It's not rising very quickly. It's just a slow, steady process with this northeast wind across Matagorda Bay and Lavaca Bay. Boy, this will keep you up all night. And the roar of the wind, I don't know, I'm going to come over here and see if we can hear how the wind roars around this corner. I don't know if you get right here. I don't know if you can hear that. I can hear it myself. I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone, but just that roar that's going to go all night long. It makes it tough to sleep when it's blowing like that. You've probably been through that before, maybe with a nor'easter or with a thunderstorm, but it's roaring through here tonight. Power is still on. We're keeping our fingers crossed for everybody here in Texas that the power can stay on as long as possible, maybe not go out at all. We're hoping for the best here, although we know that this is going to be catastrophic as far as rainfall totals. And on the coast, Aransas County beaches, there's going to be a lot of structural damage. Those wind gusts now up to 125 miles an hour in Port Aransas. Dr. Knapp, this is just going to be an all-night thing, not a 3 or 4 hour event. And that's the big concern here as far as this water rise and these winds here on what they call the dirty side, or the east side, the right front quadrant of Hurricane Harvey, a Category 4, first one we've seen landfall in Texas since Kola in 1961.
Yeah, and Mike, it's only a matter of time here, very short amount of time left before the center of the hurricane will be declared by the National Hurricane Center as having come on shore. I don't think it has quite happened yet, but we're getting very, very close. And I wanted to highlight, again, what the essential forecast is for how long it will take for the hurricane to go past areas like Port Lavaca and what that means for a place like that. So they haven't experienced their strongest winds yet because the center of the hurricane hasn't made its closest pass, and they haven't experienced their greatest water rise. These values up in Lavaca Bay and surrounding areas are what we think the reasonable worst case scenario is throughout the event. And as Mike said, the water is being pushed into the bay, but until the hurricane passes and makes its closest approach, you won't get the strongest winds into that area until that time. So the water has been coming up relatively slowly, but as the hurricane passes to their south and west, the strongest winds will go through, and that's when the greatest water rises will occur. And then there will still be onshore flow for hours and hours, because it's going to, like tomorrow afternoon, the center of circulation is still going to be just a little bit to the west of Victoria. So you'll still have onshore flow into Port Lavaca, Matagorda Bay. So Jim, on the dirty side of the hurricane, it's going to be nasty for a long time to come, a day or more with that onshore flow.
Yeah, and I mean, we're on hour 11 here, Dr. Knapp, of tropical storm gusts, that's for sure, and some of these have been upwards, about 74, 75 miles an hour, so minimal hurricane. The biggest gust we've had right now reported is Port Aransas at 131, okay? That's a heck of a wind, and even, gusting or not, that's going to cause some structural damage, potentially major structural damage. We're just going to have to wait and see. All this is happening at night now, so you're getting a twofold hazard. You are getting damage with the wind energy, and you have certainly damage potential, a lot of damage potential with the kind of water and the water pileup that we're seeing as well. So tough to see these things at night unfold. Sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes the storm, when it moves through, you can go out the next day or get close by the next day and see how bad it was. It may take a few days because this thing's going to be hanging around so long, to actually assess just how widespread the damage is. So don't think if tomorrow or the day after we haven't gotten to some of this damage that's the whole thing. It may just be the fact because everything is still windy and there's still high water in spots, we just can't get to it at this point. Again, as I've been mentioning, I am the left goalpost. Mike Seidel is the right goalpost. Harvey's going up in between us right now, right over Rockport. Let's go to Mike Seidel to that right goalpost, Mike, as you are again taking much more wind now on that right side.
Yeah,
there's no friction.
Jim.
You're getting it right off the water.
We are, Jim, and thank God it's not going to be kicked wide right over here into Calhoun County. But even without taking the strongest winds like in Port Aransas, we're getting battered pretty good right now. We've got a long night ahead of us. These winds here are gusting upwards of 60 miles an hour. You think you're getting a break, and then it just comes right back at you and slaps you in the back. And the rainfall, too, is unrelenting. That's the other angle of the story, is this rainfall now over 4 inches. Take a look at the water in the parking lot, still coming up. And now I notice that it's all the way around the bend here. It's hard to see. We have no way to really light up the distance, but you maybe can see the water on the other side of the ramp here. It's hard to see, but 35, Texas 35, if you know this area, it's open. The water is not encroached on 35, and it certainly isn't over the Lavaca Bay Bridge, which takes you over to Port Comfort. But we've seen no vehicles in several hours, which is good. They don't typically close the bridge down officially with 45-mile-an-hour winds like they do, a lot of DOTs do in other states, like the Sunshine Skyway Bridge on the west coast of Florida. But there's nothing to stop you going over tonight, but it's, again, a very dangerous night because that wind is coming right across Matagorda Bay and right over the bridge, and the bridge sits up even higher than where we're standing here. Again, feeling very safe here at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites because this hotel is pretty much hurricane-proof. They built it 6 years ago to withstand something like this, and it's doing a fine job. There's water surrounding the lower level, but there's nothing on the lower level except some storage rooms. Their first floor is up about 16 to 18 feet, and the building is concrete, steel, and hardy plank on the lower level. Boy, this wind is really, I mean, it just keeps slowly edging up, and the rain just comes in. But you'll notice on the radar that we're still a good ways from the eastern eye wall, and it's going to get worse before it gets better as we go on through the overnight hours. Even the wind impacting Mark Weiss, a photographer who is doing a bang-up job back here around the side of the building. Whoa, why don't we, whoa. Well, that one got me in the back. I was gonna say, why don't we take a walk down and give you a little tour. We've got some time here, and just show you what we're dealing with as we get around the corner here. And notice the water's come up. We've got about 6 to 8 inches of water here. Now this is why they built the hotel up high. None of this water is getting inside of the hotel. We'll take it back here. Now the wind is much calmer. We'll just keep walking back here. Pardon my back to the camera. Ooh. But you get back here, it's not raining, and there's no wind. It's all blowing over the top of this, what is this, about a 6 to 7 story hotel. But let me show you how much the water's risen as we've been out there for about another hour. We're gonna keep going, get into the light out here so you get a better picture of what we're dealing with. Okay, so Lavaca Bay is out there. That's the front yard. That ramp there for handicapped is still not underwater, but the water is coming right through here. Boy, it's nice to get out of that wind for a few minutes. And it goes right straight through here into the parking lot. That entire parking lot we'll walk out here is underwater. And again, we've got about 8 inches of water here. Now this is the south side or the east side, looking out towards the Motel 6. And there's still some areas out here that are not underwater because of the elevation change, the rolling nature of the concrete here in this lot. But you can see this light pole here, I believe. You can see how that's being whipped by the wind. but we're protected. This just gives you an idea of how we decide where we're going to cover hurricanes. We just don't come into town and say, let's stay there because we want our points. But we look at these things very closely. Elevation, how well is the hotel constructed, like this one, 6 years old, built very strong. And, you know, other things, does it have a generator, things like that. But we're feeling very confident because of the elevation here and how well the hotel's constructed that we'll be fine. And we also have plenty of non-perishable food, water, beverages to get us through the next several days if we are stuck here for some reason. So far, we don't see any damage visually around here. The Motel 6 next door is also a situation where they don't have anything that can really be ripped off except maybe the sign up there. But other than that, we haven't seen, just one little piece of flying debris went over me about half an hour ago. Let's go back to Dr. Nab, Jim Cantore, down in Corpus Christi as we continue with the worst of the weather. We'll go to Jim Cantore. Jim, nice to get out of the wind for a little bit, but we'll go back out front here in a few and see how much the water has risen over the past hour and a half here in Port Lavaca. Jim, take it away.
All right, Michael, we appreciate that. Again, good visuals as to what it's like being on the east side of the eye. Here I am on the west side, the dirty side, where we're getting winds out of the west-northwest right now. And you can see, you know, as far as I can see, up and down Shoreline Drive, we do not have any power outages. So this is great news. Most of our winds have been gusting over tropical storm force now for the last 11 hours. And Mike's going to deal with the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if well into tomorrow afternoon he actually gusts that high. Our max gust, guys, if you're just tuning in, 131 at Port Aransas, Rockport, Port O'Connor. These are towns that are going to take the brunt of this thing. And again, I don't even want to imagine what we're going to see when this finally calms down, because it's going to take a long time. It will be a beating for many, many hours here. What we can hope for is once this gets on shore, it does weaken a little bit, but where Mike is, he's always going to be on the east side. He's always going to be on the east side, so he's not going to get a lot of aid. It'll be, you know, it'll be interesting. And Dr. Nab, I don't know if we have these records. You may know this better than I do. Do we have records for any given storm for longevity in terms of tropical storm gusts or hurricane gusts that go hours on end? Do we have those kind of records?
Boy, the records, I'm sure, could be assembled, but I don't have that kind of number in my head. But I suspect that when this event is over, it may very well surpass just about anything we've seen, depending on how long it lingers. And that story's yet to be written, but this may very well end up being, when you compare to past durations with slow-moving systems, that this could set some records in terms of how many hours some locations get winds of tropical storm force. I would not be surprised if this ends up being an unprecedented event in that regard. Jim, I wanted to mention too, not far from where you are, you're down in Corpus Christi, and then just north of you is where this area of the extreme wind warnings in effect in Aransas, Calhoun, or Refugio counties. And it was within the last hour or so that near Aransas Pass, they got a sustained wind of 102 miles an hour and a gust 120. And that's within this area of an extreme wind warning. So obviously we're experiencing winds, if not at, but near hurricane force actually measured, and certainly we're getting major hurricane force winds occurring in that eye wall, or will, as it fully comes on shore. So with a Cat 4 hurricane coming ashore, some folks in there are experiencing the full brunt, and hopefully most folks aren't there to experience it, having evacuated. So and again, it's so important as we approach the moment of the actual landfall being declared, which is probably just moments away, that this is just the beginning of the event for a lot of folks. And Jim, I wanted to highlight before I toss it back to you, if you take the big picture view, that we talked about San Antonio and Houston and Austin and Houston a while ago. The rains are just starting to reach the outer bands, the outermost bands starting to reach San Antonio. Houston area getting a lot of rain right now. And in so many areas inland from the landfall location, it's already raining, and it's days and days to come, Jim.
Yeah, and what's interesting, as this comes north, eventually it does stop, because it's going to hit a point where it wants to change direction and come back the other way. So you're going to have that prolonged period wherever that sets up, Dr. Nab, Dr. Nab, what do you make of the fact that we've seen some lightning now in that eye wall? Is that a sign that you're getting interaction with land? I know we see this over the ocean, but as the storm is coming on shore like this, is it an interaction with land situation, or is it a sign that we're still getting some strengthening?
Well, my experience has been with eye wall lightning that it often maximizes when you have something going on with the inner core in terms of it changing its organization. And one of the times when that can certainly occur is as the eye wall is interacting with land. So not surprising to see eye wall lightning. Sometimes that happens as rapid intensification has ended. Sometimes that happens when an eye wall replacement cycle is about to go on and you lose the inner eye wall. But interaction with land is certainly going to cause a lot of more turbulent motions and some disruption of the flow within the core that could contribute to eye wall lightning that would already have been occurring to some extent before it reaches land.
Doc, what are you thinking for landfall here? Are we 30 minutes, 40 minutes? Is it imminent?
It is very imminent. It may not take 30 or 40 minutes, but it just depends on whether or not it decides to stall just for a few more minutes before it moves the center on shore. But looking at the radar, it certainly looks to me like we're in the single digits in terms of miles, how far offshore the center of the hurricane is from the barrier island. So it has to cross that first barrier island, the center of the hurricane, for landfall to be declared. But again, on some level, it's a little bit academic because we know that the eye wall's already come on shore and the strongest winds are already reaching land in all likelihood.
All right, Doc, we appreciate that insight. Dr. Rick Nab, our hurricane specialist, we're proud to call him that here on the Weather Channel once again. Let's go to Mike Bettis. Again, Mike, probably about a 4.5-hour drive, depending on how traffic is from where I am right now. So I've been comparing where Mike Seidel and I are using the football in the middle of a field goal as the eye wall. And Mike's the right goalpost, I'm the left goalpost. You're kind of in the upper stands, if you will, but still, that doesn't mean you're not without some of the game here. You're getting some pretty heavy rain, buddy.
Yeah, we've had some pretty decent thunderstorms to come through. Jim, I'd go with maybe end zone pylon. We'll go with that, right? Hey, you know, the thing is this. Okay. You know, we get these strong outer bands, and right now we've got pretty good wind. Okay, we've got for hours now we've had winds over 30 miles an hour. At times we'll have gusts that are higher than that, mid 40s to low 50s. Okay, so as high as 52 mile/hour wind gusts measured today. The risk, though, is this, and I've seen with a lot of these thunderstorms bands, and right now we're getting a break. They're not absolutely continuous. You'll get breaks within those. A tornado risk is there, okay? And really, it's been Brazoria and Galveston County that have had the most tornado warnings today. And Brazoria, by the way, has had the recent tornado warnings. That's only about 20 miles to my south here with well-defined couplets on the radar, okay? You'll get these big lightning jumps on the radar as well. And we've seen the lightning in the distance there. That can often be an indication you're going to have a tornado. And so tornado watches go until 2 o'clock tonight. That may be extended, considering that as Harvey comes in, it may not weaken all that much and it may not move all that much. So those same areas right along the upper Texas coast are going to end up staying in that area where you've got the greatest risk for tornadoes in that right front quadrant of the hurricane, okay? So these are risks we're going to run throughout the night tonight. Be able to be alerted if you happen to be in this tornado-prone area. Weather radio, great thing to have. Turn it on tonight before you go to bed. And it's battery powered. It'll alert you if that tornado does indeed happen. You know, they did not have evacuations here in Galveston. They've got a big seawall, protects them from surge, and that's a good thing because the water just came up to the bottom of the seawall. Didn't come over it, didn't overtop it. That's actually the Gulf of Mexico right to my right. I know it's dark, it's hard to see. We've had big white caps today, but at no point at this location have we been at risk for storm surge flooding. It's been all basically storm flooding, all from thunderstorms where you have rainfall rates that are 1 to 2 inches an hour, and the next thing you know, you've got streets that are now filling up with water, and that happened numerous times today. Certainly, wind is going to be a problem. You can see that we've got the palms that are blowing here, and within some of these big thunderstorms, you're going to get maybe 50, 60 mile-an-hour winds, and that may be enough to bring down some power lines. Maybe some trees will come down. We got a very saturated soil now. You get a good wind gust that comes along, and now you've got a compromised root system where everything's very weak now in that waterlogged soil, and those trees can go over pretty quickly and maybe topple some power lines. So anticipate power outages that could happen for us tonight. Dr. Knabb, I want to ask you about that. You know, we haven't talked a whole lot about what our risk may be for power outages, but I feel like everyone that lives from the eye inland and maybe a rectangle down the coast and over is at risk for some serious loss of power.
Yes, I mean, if you were to think about all the areas under tropical storm and hurricane warnings, those are obviously good candidates for areas that could experience power outages. And anybody who gets a brief tornado in that area, that could contribute to a power outage. And I think we've been showing occasionally the areas where power outages are expected. But you can see where you are, Mike, that there's occasional squalls coming in and cells come and go. So you get these dry periods, and then you get a really strong cell to come through. And I really want to emphasize, Mike, one point that you made earlier that is so important. If the power does go out where you live, and for so many people it's a near certainty in association with Harvey, but don't operate your generator indoors, because that can generate carbon monoxide poisoning that in past events has wiped out entire families when they operate those generators indoors. So don't do that, and don't light candles either. It's a fire hazard. You don't need a fire during a hurricane event. So use the flashlights and stay safe from these indirect causes of death that have happened in too many past events.
Yeah, you know, when you think about that, Dr. Knabb, it's certainly one thing you got to keep in mind. And I've got my flashlight here. Our whole crew brings flashlights just to make sure that we're covered in the case that we lose electricity. But be smart. And if you've got a carbon monoxide detector, that's a great thing to have. But be smart about where you place that thing inside. No chance. It literally has to be not a long. I mean, you don't have to put it way out in the backyard because you've got to run extension cords to it. But you need to put it away from doors, windows, not in the garage, not in the carport, an area that's well ventilated where those fumes and that exhaust is not going to come into your house, because you're going to go to bed and the next thing you know, you're going to be overcome, and you will have no idea, and your family then is overcome, and you become a victim of the storm unintentionally, right? That could be a risk that we run in a lot of places, because we're going to lose power with this system, and then afterwards, we're all going to want to have our electricity back on, right? And so a lot of generators will be running here. Just keep that in mind. Don't run any risk whatsoever. Now the deal about our tornadoes is this, and Dr. Knabb, I thought you made an excellent point here, is that you get these breaks. But what I find interesting is, though, it seems like a thunderstorm cluster will come through, and it'll just rain like crazy. We'll have some pretty good wind, and then the rain will go away. But I feel like with each successive storm that comes by, Dr. Knabb, the dry wind that follows ramps it up a notch.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to predict how that behavior is going to evolve, because it depends on if you've got a long band extending out into the Gulf of Mexico that's going to continue going over you, or if you're just getting a little more of an isolated cell. You know, and if I look at what's going on in the Galveston-Houston area right now, south of Houston, to the northwest of Galveston, there's a pretty solid, continuous band of heavy rainfall with tornado warnings embedded in there. But then, if you look a little bit farther up the coast, going into Galveston and Bolivar Peninsula, going into Galveston Bay and into Pasadena, Texas, you've got a little bit more of a cellular structure with longer breaks between the cells. So it really does depend on exactly where you are, and some places in between are getting nothing for many minutes to an hour or more at a time, but eventually you're going to get your share of these squalls, Mike. So it really is hit or miss, but some folks south of Houston are getting hit right now.
Yeah, I want to get your thought also on, the wave action that we're getting this far away from the eye, because I thought one thing that was curious, maybe for some reason I was surprised, but maybe I shouldn't be, because they closed the port of Galveston. No ship traffic in or out, and we noticed there were a lot of boats just sitting out there in the open water of the Gulf waiting to come in to the port of Galveston. In your experience being the Hurricane Center director, what's that like with ship traffic? Were you surprised at all that being this far from the eye they closed the port?
Not completely surprised, no, because, you know, for one thing, you know, in recent years we've been reminded by some pretty major events out at sea how dangerous hurricanes can be, even for large ships. So that's one issue. Secondly, once you get into a bay and into a port area, now you're talking about the influence of water rise, storm surge with waves on top of that, that makes the docking process and other activities in ports a little more dangerous, and they often close the ports not just for the safety of the boats, but for the safety of all operations in and around the port. So, Mike, there are multiple reasons for that, I believe.
Yeah, now that you explain it that way, I think it makes perfect sense. But I think a lot of those boats that are sitting out there are rocking and rolling right now. What we're seeing right now, likely to be most likely the height of what the waves do here in Galveston. And again, they haven't threatened or compromised the seawall in any way, shape, or form. The south side, though, is much more vulnerable to storm surge in this area where we've got a really high seawall. Jim, I know you've been here many, many times. Pleasure Pier has been closed, but not compromised. The waves not nearly as high as they were even for like an Ike. Even though we've got a stronger storm now, it's significantly farther away.
Yeah, and the problem is you don't have that seawall continuing. There are gaps in it, Mike, and the water comes in on the outside of that seawall, and that's what floods downtown Galveston. Now, we don't think that is going to happen, and we certainly hope it doesn't happen. But, you know, that combined with heavy rain does cause its own set of problems in through here. We've gotten, guys, this is new in here, we've gotten some unofficial reports now of a building collapse in Rockport. This wouldn't surprise me, frankly, because we are dealing with winds gusting to 120 to 140 miles per hour now. And in Aransas, that has been happening now for at least the last hour. So, you know, we're dealing with the eye wall. That's going to calm down a little bit as obviously we get into the center of this and we eventually get a landfall. But then you're going to get the backside of it, which may or may not be as strong. But what's really interesting is if you look at this eye, and this is why, you know, Dr. Nab, these things always amaze me. It really doesn't look like this eye is losing any bit of its definition.
Yeah, I don't see Harvey losing its definition much at all. And if you look closely on either the satellite or the radar, it looks pretty healthy. Now, there are always, when you zoom in really tightly on a hurricane eye and eye wall, you see some irregularities and some asymmetries. But what you're seeing over land in the Rockport area it's got to be devastating there in the area where we've got the extreme wind warning. And again, even on the radar, you can get a little bit of the sense of there being some wave patterns in the interior structure of the eye wall. Right as you go into the eye, you aren't necessarily seeing thunderstorm activity and convection and cloud structures that are a perfect circle. You see some of this waviness that is indicative of some eye wall mesovortices and some smaller scale structures rotating around within the eye. But then in the broader sense, you've got a pretty well-defined eye wall. So you only see that sort of structure when you zoom in. And the center, the dead center of the eye, still seems to be just a little bit offshore. So matter of moments, it would seem, before landfall occurs, but it just hasn't quite happened yet. But again, the damage is already occurring, I am certain, as you reported, Jim, in Rockport and surrounding areas, and that's going to spread inland.
And Doc, like I said earlier, it's going to be amazing. You know, we may not see the full scope of this day. This isn't like a storm that's going to come in and work its way to the west and then just be out of the way. We can get in and see what happened. It may take 2-3 days to really get in here. I mean, you're talking infrastructure, structural damage. We know that we're power poles down. We know there are power outages up that way as well. We just don't know the extent of it at this point. But of course, water, as you and I both know, does it a phenomenal, unthinkable amount of damage, and we think it will certainly on the right front side of this thing. Again, guys, we are still gusting. We are an hour 12 here. I think Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we're in hour 12, maybe 13, of tropical storm wind gusts. And Dr. Knapp and I were talking earlier, hour 12, of how we don't know if the data table exists. Certainly we can find out. But you know, how long are we going to spend in at least tropical storm force wind gusts in several of these cities? Places like Freeport, places like Rockport, places like where Mike is in Lavaca, even eventually Bettis up in Galveston, Victoria, because of the slow movement of this and the fact that it takes to the later part of the weekend to actually get out of the way and hold this intensity.
Yeah, I wish
tells me that when Celia came in, oh, go ahead, Doc, go ahead, jump in.
Well, I was going to say, I wish I could say that the winds of tropical storm force in many of these areas are going to last in what I could measure in hours, but I fear that we're going to be measuring it in some places in days. You know, we haven't looked at the forecast track a little bit, but I wanted to show that because if you just look at the first day of the 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time advisory, it takes until tomorrow afternoon for it to get past Victoria, but not by a whole lot, and it's still an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane with tropical storm force winds extending over a large area. Then, instead of continuing to move on inland and out of those areas, it's going to double back. So by the time you get to Monday afternoon, it is perhaps right back where it is now. So that's why we're talking about days of tropical storm conditions in many places.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty historic. Doc, Celia came in 1970 down and through here, and we had a pressure of 962 millibars. According to a friend of Catherine's, we may actually see a lower pressure. This may be the lowest pressure in Corpus Christi with a tropical system, or any system for that matter. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, when you're talking Cat 4 and down in the 940s, that's pretty remarkable, a pretty rare event in any location. And it's also amazing what we're going to see in terms of the strength of winds and how long not just tropical storm force winds occur, but how long hurricane force winds occur. And again, referring back to that track, we're still talking, you know, tomorrow afternoon, it's still a hurricane.
Yeah.
And so hurricane force winds are going to be occurring not just at the coast, but inland. It's not going to weaken as fast as other hurricanes would if they were moving farther inland more quickly, because it's still going to remain so close to the coast that it's still going to tap into the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, which allows it to last longer, which continues to create the storm surge into coastal areas with the onshore flow into places like Port Lavaca, where Mike Seidel is, and it allows for this long duration wind and rain event. And I don't know if we've said it in the last hour or so, but let's keep reminding people to not drive their cars over a water-covered roadway as the rainfall totals rack up and flash flooding really starts to materialize.
And we've got some 5-6 inch totals already, and we know those are going to add up, and in some areas get well into the double digits. Doc, a couple of hurricanes I can remember, Hurricane Jean, kind of slowly moving on the Florida coast back in 2004. I can't remember the year, but Olivia just kind of pounding southern North Carolina. But, you know, we didn't talk about days of tropical storm force wind gusts like we could certainly with this system. And that's what I think makes it so amazing to me, that type of statistic that may come out of this. Maybe one of, I guess, many amazing statistics. The chances, I think, of ever hearing about a Harvey again on an Atlantic name sheet are almost 100% that we won't.
Yeah, when I was director of the Hurricane Center, and every year in the spring we'd decide which names to retire. We would retire them based on the overall scope and the impacts, and I can't imagine how Harvey is going to avoid having impacts that don't rise to the level of something that would be retired. And that's an academic and future issue to talk about, of course, but it is indicative of how certain we are that the impacts are going to be widespread, severe, unprecedented due to the winds and the water. The hurricane force winds, not just coastal but inland, the storm surge, not just right at the beach, but going up bays and into rivers, like where Seidel is in Port Lavaca, and even going farther up the coast, and the inland flooding again, we've been talking about this for days, about how we could have days worth of heavy rainfall, and it's really worth reiterating how much rain we're talking about, because we've been preaching the last couple days about how when landfall occurs, that's about to happen, that's really in many ways the beginning of the event. And I cannot believe we are actually showing, for good reason, rainfall totals that have a 3 and a 0. 30 inches and maybe isolated spots eclipsing that. We saw in excess of 30 inches in Tropical Storm Allison, because, Jim, it was never a hurricane, but it wouldn't move. So Harvey has one of those characteristics of Allison.
Yeah, we know for a while anyway it isn't going to move, and it's also going to have a lot stronger wind field. Doc, I'm going to put you on the spot here with this one a little bit, and you can say I don't really know, Jim, but the fact is, when we get in late August and early September, the air's moving a little bit. I mean, the steering flow is pretty good out there. Is this a little bit late, you think, in the season for something to stall out like this, or is this something you could expect, toward late August in this part of the world?
It's not meteorologically so off the charts for there to be a large-scale pattern over the U.S. where you have high pressure over the eastern Gulf and over Florida, and then another high pressure over the western part of the U.S. It's just that it doesn't happen very often that you have a really strong hurricane sitting in that particular spot at that particular time right near the coast. That's what is a confluence of unfortunate events here. Any hurricane making landfall anywhere is a relatively rare event, but to be making landfall with this kind of collapsing steering pattern is obviously not what we want to see. And if you look at the model tracks, look at this, what we call a squashed spider pattern, and they all meander. They don't all agree on exactly where it will meander, but when you see the models all just kind of sitting there, that's just collapsed steering currents. And that happens, just usually doesn't happen with a hurricane right there at the right place at the wrong time. I mean, just a from a meteorological perspective, this is where a hurricane would need to be to stall, but this is absolutely the wrong place, wrong time. I just don't want to see this.
Yeah, and this would be one of the spots I think it would be happening, like you mentioned, the western plains, or the Rockies Ridge, and also the Atlantic high pressure system. So interesting. Guys, stick around. We're going to continue our coverage. We got a long way to go here on the Weather Channel. Obviously, days and days of coverage coming up. We are just dealing with one part of this. That is a landfalling category 4 hurricane coming onshore. Landfall is imminent somewhere along the central coast of Texas. The first Cat 4 in 56 years to come ashore here. And with it, we've already had winds gusting to 131 miles per hour and reports of structural damage on parts of the coastline already. It may be days before we see the extent of some of the damage here because of exactly what Dr. Nav and I were talking about, the very, very slow movement with that. We've got teams pretty much lined up on the coast tonight. We've got Mike Bettis, who's up in Galveston, Mike Seidel, who is in Port Lavaca. Mike and Mike, if you will, are dealing with the eastern wind component and, of course, the eastern water. I am on what we call the dirty side of the hurricane, the west side here in Corpus Christi, just missing the eye wall earlier today. And thank goodness, because as far as I can see up and down Shoreline Drive, we do have power tonight, and we have not had any kind of a surge component here, at least in the Gulf of Mexico. We want to report to you right now that Harvey has just made landfall. We have an official landfall, and for that, let's find out exactly where it was. Dr. Rick Nav, tell us where it was.
Yeah, Jim, so it's really ironic that the timing of landfall is right at the top of the hour, essentially, because we were talking a few minutes ago about how the timing of the advisory might be such that they would have to issue it before actual landfall occurs, and then the timing of it in the advisory be valid at 10 p.m. Central, be after landfall occurs. But it has just so happened that the time of landfall is right here at 10 p.m. Central time. And the center of circulation, I'll read it right off the advisory, Center Hurricane Harvey is just made landfall on the Texas coast over the northern end of San Jose Island, about 4 miles east of Rockport. So we were talking about San Jose Island and it being just offshore on the barrier island on the opposite side of the bay from Rockport, and I can show you a little bit closer in where that is. This is northeast of Corpus Christi. It is south of Port Lavaca and well to the southwest of Houston and Galveston. But here is San Jose Island, and here is Rockport just on the other side of the bay. So it has made landfall, and here's the eye, and there is the dead center of the hurricane right on the coast of the barrier island there. So this is the first intersection between the center of the hurricane and land. Now, it will, of course, cross the bay here, and I suppose, technically speaking, will make a second landfall, if you want to call it that, somewhere near Rockport, Jim.
Yeah, and I mean, do you see anything in terms of the speed? Does it look like it's come north and now is kind of crawling on shore?
It is slowing down. I mean, if you look at the latest advisory, it is moving northwest at 7 miles an hour, which is a little slower than before, and this is a taste of things to come in terms of an even slower motion. I think when we look at this later on, we're going to think of 7 miles per hour as maybe being pretty fast because it is still expected to experience the collapsing of the steering currents, and I can show you if we switch over quickly. Well, I'll read over this information, of course. Right there at the top of the hour, 10 p.m. Central Time, right at advisory time, is the time of landfall. I don't know if that's ever happened before. Certainly not on my shift when I was a forecaster down at the Hurricane Center. There on San Jose Island,
that's pretty wild.
At Category 4 intensity with 130 mile per hour winds and the pressure just below 940 at 938 millibars. And if we can, I want to show you the updated forecast track, because this is at 10 p.m. Central Time. Every 6 hours, we're getting a brand new complete advisory from the Hurricane Center. So again, what you see is 24 hours from now, still a hurricane. Somewhere to the west of Victoria, still to the east or southeast of San Antonio, Texas. So that means, coming ashore as a Category 4 for the next day or so, it remains a hurricane, bringing hurricane force winds farther inland than most folks have ever experienced in this part of Texas. And then there is that loop again. It takes it back almost to the current landfall point on Monday evening. So here we are, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The 3-day forecast is essentially the current location. And I know that's nauseating for everybody to have to hear about how slowly this is going to be moving. And then it moves to the northeast in the general direction of the Houston area. But exactly where the center goes isn't that important. What's important is we're still going to have a tropical storm, perhaps moving right over Mike Seidel's current location sometime on Tuesday. Mike, heads up, there's a tropical storm coming your way after you experience the hurricane for the next 3 days. This is such a difficult scenario to absorb and to have to accept.
I'm going to order my gurney now because I've never seen this before. I've covered a lot of, I think now 64 hurricanes and tropical storms at the Weather Channel. And if that verifies, the only one I can remember, and Dr. Knapp, you may remember the name, I think it was Faye. It was a tropical storm, and I covered 4 landfalls in Florida. I think that was about 6 or 7 years ago. You remember that one. I can't recall the name, but it made 4 landfalls in Florida in about 4 or 5 days. But it was a tropical storm. We're not talking about something like this, and the rainfall amounts were not as prolific as we're expecting here. What we've done for you is we've come up onto the balcony. This is this hotel. We've talked about the Holiday Inn Express and Suites here in Port Lavaca, built 6 years ago. It's concrete, steel, block, and hardy plank. And we're up about 15, 16 feet above the water. And the bay now, the waves are crashing in. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if Mark Weiss can open up the iris, throw some light out there. There we go. You can see the water now coming over the seawall and then into the front yard here. And that palm tree is getting whipped. These winds sustained in the 40s. We've gusted over 60 miles an hour. And just look at the battering it's taking. And remember, this wind fetch here is not that far, maybe a few miles. because of the northeast wind. Look at that wave coming in. We're about 25 miles in from the Gulf across Matagorda Bay, so we're not getting the direct wave impact that they're getting out on those barrier islands, those beaches like they saw in Aransas County. They're still seeing. But we are on the right side, the right front quadrant, so we're going to be dealing with this all night long. And into tomorrow, the wind is still going to be blowing onshore because that hurricane's going to stay off to our general direction, off to our west. So it remains to be seen how long this water stays up. Right now, though, we're very safe. We've got a sturdy building, and we've got plenty of elevation to keep us away from this water rise and the surge, expected to be somewhere in the 6 to 10 foot range here in Lavaca Bay. The other thing we're noticing, and we're very happy about this, and we hope those of you watching us, of course, if you can't see us, you probably don't have power, but if your power is staying on, we're hoping for the best. Fortunately, it is summertime. We don't have to worry about cold weather, but it's always nice to have power and the creature comforts. But as long as you have power, remember,
Dr. Knapp, can you still hear me?
Keep your cell phone charged up, keep those things charged up. Yes, Dr. Knapp, go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you while I'm talking about and looking at the potential storm surge flooding map, again, there's a lot of variability in terms of the shape of the coastline up in the bay there, changes in elevation, and when we look at our potential storm surge flooding map, we see kind of where downtown Port Lavaca is in a relative high location, but as you've been making your way into the area and during the day today, do you see, or did you become familiar with some of the really vulnerable spots that the local officials there were concerned about, that they really wanted to make sure got evacuated? Because when you look at areas around you, to your south, up to your north, and then across the bay, a lot of areas that could get the 6 to 9 or greater heights of water above ground from the storm surge.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of population across the bay, across the bridge. It's called Port Comfort. There's refineries over there, but very few residences. And then really the next town, I believe, up the coast, but not on the coast, is Palacios. And they're getting it too. They're farther north, so they're going to be a little farther away from the winds we're seeing right now, but they've been gusting in the 40s to near 50 this evening. We're all getting into the heavy rain. By the way, I want to welcome our Local Now viewers across the country. We're streaming on Local Now. If you don't have the Weather Channel, you can see us on Roku, Slingbox, YouTube, all those cool devices, Netflix, all those cool devices that stream Local Now, and we're streaming our coverage into the weekend to keep everybody updated who may or may not have the Weather Channel. You have another way to watch TV. Meanwhile, back here in Port Lavaca, it's going to be a long couple of days with the onshore wind, and Dr. Knapp, as you mentioned, the modeling keeps us in an onshore winter. Maybe we get this system goes back out over the Gulf and re-intensifies, although the morning run of the European did back off on a hurricane coming in towards Galveston. So that was some promising news from the hurricane model. And again, we're talking, what, 4 or 5 days from now. So that's a long way out. And maybe we'll get some steering flow. In the meantime, this thing's just going to sit and spin. It is pretty much like a stationary waterfall over a lot of Texas, San Antonio, Austin, down here in the Corpus and here in Port Lavaca, up to Houston, the great Fort Lauderdale area. The only major metro in Texas that's going to avoid direct impacts from Hurricane Harvey is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. With these winds, they're just rattling the windows here in Port Lavaca. Dr. Knapp?
Yeah, and so when we combine an analysis of the track forecast with where land and water are, there are a couple of important points to make relative to what Mike just said. The track might not end up being exactly right where you see what this white line does. So, for example, if it was to not go as far inland as forecast here and then was to come back out over water instead of being back on land, that would obviously give it a little bit more of an opportunity to perhaps stay a little stronger or re-strengthen a little bit. Of course, the opposite could happen. It goes a lot farther inland and maybe is able to weaken a little faster than shown here, but none of that changes the overall life-threatening heavy rainfall and inland flood risk that we think is so high that it's essentially a certainty that there's going to be devastating flooding from the rainfall in some portions of the areas highlighted here, and that is over a very, very large area of southeastern and southern Texas. So I wouldn't want folks to worry too much about the details of the track forecast, because this overall risk is going to be there no matter what. And I'll highlight again that most people who die in inland flooding die in their cars, and we saw that happen in Matthew last year. So don't drive your car in a water-covered roadway, and that especially goes at night when you really can't see how deep the water is, but you can't see that very well in the daytime either. And don't drive around barricades. And that goes in addition to the storm surge flooding that you're going to be seeing in Matagorda Bay and Lavaca Bay and surrounding areas, and over to Palacios, as you mentioned, Mike. So water everywhere, coastal and inland.
Yeah, Dr. Knapp, you bring up a good point about the inland flooding and people in their cars. And you'll remember this, back in 1999, Hurricane Floyd came in. It was steaming towards Florida as a 5. It made a right turn. It came in to North Carolina, going from a 3 to a 2. But then it was all the rain on those rivers that flow out into the Albemarle and Pamlico Sounds. And I still remember vividly how many people drowned long after the hurricane made landfall. And if they had just stayed home, they would have been fine. But they decided to get into their cars and drive to a friend or neighbor's house, and they perished. So, you know, it's great advice. If you're in a high location, you're not flood prone, just sit tight. Don't try to get out and go somewhere, because especially, look at this. What do we got out here? It's really a big black hole. You can't see anything. And it's very, very dangerous, especially as we get into the weekend and early next week, as this rainfall adds up. So far, you know, we haven't had that much rain inland, talking about San Antonio and Austin, but as the ground gets saturated and turns into a big slopping sponge, and the rainfall continues, then we run the risk of flash flooding and river flooding, and many people being impacted, maybe being cut off. And then we also throw in the risk of not only being cut off, but the possibility with the wind and the wet ground of trees being uprooted, and we have significant power outages for days on end. Stay with the Weather Channel, continuing coverage of Harvey all night long from Texas.
Please, hold.
The running of the bold dogs? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much money Aaliyah saved by switching to Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Nick was born to move. Not necessarily after 3 toddlers with boundless energy. But lower back pain won't stop him from keeping up. Because at a Dr. Scholl's kiosk, he got a recommendation for our best custom-fit orthotic to relieve his foot, knee, or lower back pain from being on his feet by reducing shock and stress on his body with every step. So look out, world. Dad's taking charge. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
You might take something for your heart, your joints, or your digestion. So why wouldn't you take something for the most important part of you, your brain? With an ingredient originally found in jellyfish, Prevagen is now the #1 selling brain health supplement in drugstores nationwide. Prevagen, the name to remember.
It's your first day on the job. Walk in like you own the place.
Now at Men's Warehouse, get 3 for $99 dress shirts plus buy one, get one on select items. It's time to like the way you look.
This Labor Day at Enterprise Car Sales. Experience great customer service and get more for your trade August 25th through September 5th. And let Enterprise Car Sales flip your thinking about buying your next vehicle.
I'm proud of what the Weather Channel is. It's a place you can turn to and trust.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Introducing the all-new DR Leaf and Lawn Vacuum, now at our lowest price ever. The DR cleans up acres of leaves and grass while you mow. In the spring, collect dead grass, wet leaves, and twigs from storm damage. Come summer, the DR makes a great high-capacity bagger, and in the fall, turns days of raking into a drive in the park. When it's time to unload, nothing could be easier. Look, just one hand. Plus, with the collector top removed, you've got a rugged utility cart that's great for all kinds of hauling chores. The DR is the most powerful, most versatile lawn machine you can buy.
Call 1-800-731-6506 for a free buyer's guide and DVD. Learn how you can qualify for 0% financing and try a DR on your own property for 1 year. Free shipping is now in effect. That's 1-800-731-6506. Online at drleafvac.com.
When the weather turns serious, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I communicate the message very clearly to people so they understand what the risk is and how to get through this?
Currently in our area, 68 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, mainly clear skies. Low 62. Winds light and variable. Saturday, mostly sunny skies. High 86. Winds south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday night, late night thunderstorms. Low 65. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
And welcome back to hour 13 here in Corpus Christi of tropical storm force gusts or higher. That's what we've gotten in a lot of areas of Texas. We're going to see a prolonged period of very, very gusty winds, maybe lasting past 24 hours in some cases. We've had a landfall. Harvey's officially on shore near Rockport right at 10 o'clock. And get this, with a minimum pressure of 938 millibars. Now that pressure is the lowest pressure ever recorded for a landfalling Texas hurricane. 938 millibars. When you think of the Carlas, when you think of the 1900, the 1903, the 1970 with Celia, which actually came here, amazing that pressure was actually lower. So we're already in the record books with Harvey. Usually there's a little sense of relief when a hurricane or a tropical storm comes ashore, especially one that may be just continuing to move on. It dissipates and goes away. Not the case here. Not the case at all. We still have several days of historic weather setting up for Texas, especially when we look at the rainfall potential. We are so far from out of the woods, I can't even imagine it. It boggles my mind. Let's go up the road a piece. Mike Settle's in Port Lavaca. Mike has put himself in a pretty good position to cover storm surge and wind with the eastern side of this. And Mike, we're getting winds on the dirty side of the hurricane from the west, northwest, and you're getting them from the southeast. Whole different animal there off the water, no friction.
It is, and it's piling up the water, and we've seen our first bit of debris here that's floated in. I'm not sure what this is. It looks like a piece of a walkway, but it's definitely a heavy piece of fencing that has come in off Lavaca Bay. I'm not sure where it came from, but we just noticed it's flowing in. This whole front area was grass earlier. Now we've got about 2 feet of water, the seawall out there, and that's Lavaca Bay. We're going to take another walk through the hotel for the wind whipping through here, just to give you an idea of how we're staying safe here. Now this is under the main part of the hotel. It's 6-7 stories. This first floor is nobody's staying here. This is some storage areas. This is what they did when they built this hotel 6 years ago. They put it up literally on giant concrete stilts. I'm using the term loosely, of course, but the whole hotel is concrete, steel, and block. If you were watching an hour or so ago, this water's gotten about 8 or 9 inches deeper. Now I want to take you out here and give you the full effect of Hurricane Harvey. As we go down the hallway, this is the walkway and the handicapped ramp that goes up here. This is how you come up and check in. So to give you an idea, 15, 16, 17 feet. And boy, this water has come up just in the past half an hour. Up now almost halfway to my knees. But we're gonna come right out here, and I can hear the roar of Hurricane Harvey with this wind and feel the spray in my face. Boy, this is salty air coming in here. And we've got some more debris floating out here. We'll see what we've got when we get around the corner. This wind is howling around the corner here. Now, once we get around the corner, I'm going to be into the wind. And oh, by this parking lot is really filled up. Let me get out here, if I can handle it. Now we're out into the full force of the wind here. And this is the worst we've seen so far. This is what it's doing tonight in Port Lavaca, Texas, 25 miles inland from the coast, and farther than that from the eye of the hurricane. We're going to hang out here, and we'll come back with more coverage on the Weather Channel. We've got Jim Cantori, Corpus Christi, Rick Knabb, our hurricane expert, Dr. Knabb, in the studio. We'll come back in just a few minutes. Sit tight, hang on.
Let's dance, Grandma.
You don't let anything keep you sidelined.
Come on.
That's why you drink Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals for the strength and energy to get back to doing what you love. Ensure, always be you.
I take pictures of sunrises, but with my back pain, I couldn't sleep and get up in time. Then I found Aleve PM.
Aleve PM is the only one to combine a safe sleep aid plus the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Aleve.
I'm back.
Aleve PM for a better AM.
Hi, delivery for Miller?
That's me.
Sign there, please.
Laser-measured floor liners from WeatherTech provide the ultimate protection from spills and messes. They protect the front, back, and even up the sides of your vehicle. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com and see our entire line of over 100 automotive accessories. WeatherTech, made right in America.
Happens all the time. Library break!
Have a break! Have a Kit Kat!
It's 6 a.m. 40 million Americans are waking up to a Gillette shave. And at our factory in Boston, 1,200 workers are starting their day building on over 100 years of heritage, craftsmanship, and innovation. Today, we're bringing you America's #1 shave at lower prices every day, putting money back in the pockets of millions of Americans. As one of those workers, I'm proud to bring you Gillette quality for less, because nobody can beat the men and women of Gillette. Gillette, the best a man can get.
To feed your phenomenal, Lean Cuisine is changing. Over 20 dishes with no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. With ingredients like toasted sesame seeds and savory rice noodles in our garlic sesame noodles with beef. Feed your phenomenal with Lean Cuisine.
Hurricane season is here, and to take on the most powerful weather on Earth, the first response team depends on the longest-lasting pickups in America, Ram trucks. Wherever hurricanes hit, this team will strike back with power and passion, steering survivors through the storm and towards a silver lining. This hurricane season, strap in, buckle up, and ride along with the team on the Weather Channel. Ram trucks and the first response team of America, powering the road to recovery.
We all want restful sleep. That's why Nature's Bounty Melatonin is made to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, so you'll be ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Because mom's love is unconditional, even at 6 a.m. Nature's Bounty Melatonin. We're all better off healthy. Nature's Bounty knows healthy cholesterol starts in your gut, so we made Cardio Health, an innovative way to support healthy cholesterol containing LRC, a probiotic strain that helps you metabolize dietary cholesterol. Because we all want to be healthy for whatever comes next. Nature's Bounty Cardio Health.
I love you, a bushel and a peck. You bet your pretty neck I do.
While other insurance companies just see a house, we see the home you've worked really hard for.
Please, it's the
I'm proud of what the Weather Channel is. It's a place you can turn to and trust.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
And good evening, everyone. Hurricane Harvey coming ashore now at the 10 o'clock hour Central Time near Rockport, Texas, with a very low pressure, by the way, 938 millibars. We think this may be certainly one of the lower pressures that's come on in. Reports earlier it was the lowest pressure, but we're checking on that now. Either way, it's still an amazing storm when you think about it, especially coming from where we were 60 hours ago. All right, so I know it's easy to get into the minutiae with the meteorology, but unfortunately, because of the wind energy with this, because of wind gusts that we've seen measured in Port Aransas at 131 miles an hour. As a matter of fact, in Port Aransas, they had gusts continually over 100 miles an hour for at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And that's a tremendous amount of wind energy on any structure. We have had reports of structural damage in Port Aransas. That would not surprise me at all. Obviously, it's dark. We can't see this. And one of the interesting things about a hurricane coming on shore, sometimes you think, oh, they come on shore, you can breathe a little sigh of relief. They're going to weaken. They've lost their moisture and their heat source in the ocean. But in this case, it's not going to weaken rapidly. And it's going to stay up for a while. We've already had 13 hours of tropical storm force gusts here in Corpus Christi. We are on the dirty side of the storm, which is the west side, and we may stay in tropical storm force gusts for several hours. Places like Victoria, Texas, where Reynolds Wolf is, we're going to talk to him in just a little bit. He is dealing and would probably deal with the eye wall and maybe even the eye. But what will be interesting, if he doesn't get into the eye, he may have consecutive hours, maybe 20 or more certainly, where he'll have those tropical storm or stronger wind gusts. So that'll be interesting to see how all this begins to kind of unfold for us in through here. We understand right now in Rockport, it is an absolute dead calm as they are in the middle of Hurricane Harvey. All right, let's find out what is happening in Victoria, Texas. Jay Gray is there for us. And again, Jay, you haven't dealt with the eye wall yet, but you've certainly been dealing with the tropical storm force gusts and the rain.
Yeah, no, Jim, it's really picked up over the last 45 minutes to an hour here, and this is going to continue as you talk about. Nothing calm about what we're seeing here. The winds picking up dramatically as well as the rain, and it's that rain that could ultimately be the big problem here. I know we've been talking about it all day, but it's important to point out flooding is going to be a major issue, especially with this storm slowing down the way it is, and it could stall here and be in the Victoria area for days. In fact, the National Weather Service forecast calls for more than 30 inches of rain over the next couple of days here. More rain than they can handle, quite frankly. We have seen thousands of people moving to higher ground. The shelters here in Victoria completely filled right now. Other families with friends or family members outside of the strike zone, and they are just watching and waiting to see what happens. For those who have decided to ride it out here in Victoria, what officials are saying now is we're not going to get first responders in harm's way. As we feel the effects of this storm intensifying, we're going to wait. We'll move in and help you when we can if you need that help, but right now is not the time. Lock down, watch what's going on, and remember to stay safe. A lot of the people we talk to who are riding this thing out say that they've got supplies and provisions to last them for more than 2 weeks. That's how long they expect to be without power, and that might not be a bad estimate. You know, with the power lines going down in areas already, and we expect to see that here. And then with all of that rain, the teams really won't be able to get in and get to work on repairing and cleaning things up until some of that water recedes. So it's going to be a rough go for a long time for a lot of people, Jim. Back to you now.
Yeah, Jay, it's one of those things. We appreciate that report from Victoria. Jay Gray just getting into this, even though he has had for several hours some pretty strong winds, 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. They're only going to go up. They certainly may lose power there and eventually get into some of the stronger rain bands as well with that, whereas Jay's mentioning maybe up to 30 inches of rain. All right, we've got Mike Seidel back. Mike is on the northeast side. Let's go up to Mike Seidel and talk to what's happening in Port Lavaca. Go ahead, Mike.
Hello, Jim. We are really getting it right now. One of these outer eye wall bands coming into Port Lavaca off Matagorda Bay. And this is the strongest one we've seen, and the water continuing to come up here. The water rise around the Holiday Inn. Again, this hotel is built way, way up, 15, 16 feet, so we're no concern of water getting into the hotel. This wind is just stinging me with the rain. It feels like a sleet storm in Amarillo. I've got to hang on here. If you're enjoying this as much as I am, God bless you. This is the kind of battering we're going to take most of the night here. This is not, you know, I've covered hurricanes before, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours, but this is going to go on for quite a while into Saturday morning, long after sunrise. And this is what's moving up towards Reynolds Wolf in Victoria. Whoa, that one just hit me in the face. I'm going to try to get out here a little bit more. There's a little bit of a channeling effect there, I think, but wow. I've covered over 60 tropical storms and hurricanes, and this ranks right up there as far as the kind of beating I'm taking as far as the wind and the rain. But these winds right now have got to be sustained 45 to 50 miles an hour. This is pretty strong stuff. Look at the water coming up here. Lavaca Bay has pretty wiped out the demarcation from the parking lot to the rocky areas. I'm looking out towards Highway 35. It's still above water, but boy, the wind. Can we see that light pole there? Can we get a shot of the light pole there? Boy, it's, look at how it's wobbling in the wind. It doesn't have much girth, so it's not getting hit too hard. So far, you notice the power is still on here in Port Lavaca, and the rain is just pelting us here. Here comes some more. Looks like, is that debris or is that the curb? Oh, that's the curb. I thought it was some more floating wood coming in. Jim Cantori, we are definitely on the right front quadrant tonight, and we are taking it pretty hard right now. Not the kind of beating they had in Aransas County, but certainly a pretty good whipping by the atmosphere here in Port Lavaca. And as the surge comes in, look at how the water now is overtaking the road up to the front door. You can see it's now getting up close to my knees, so it is definitely rising, and it will continue to come up. Expecting a surge here from Matagorda into Port Lavaca into Lavaca Bay of 6 to 9 feet. Good reason that most of this town evacuated, and there is a curfew tonight into tomorrow here in Port Lavaca. Jim, the worst thing about this all is it's slowing down. Dr. Knapp pointed that out. That has been the concern all along, is how slow this system's moving and how that impacts the rain, regardless of what we're seeing right now here in Port Lavaca. A good fresh zephyr.
Absolutely incredible
for sure
stuff,
here,
Mike Seidel.
coming off Lavaca Bay. Wow. Jim, I know you've got an offshore wind, so that's the saving grace in Corpus Christi, but you know, that's the downside on from the eye wall, from the center all the way on the east side, the right front quadrant. Just this battering we're taking tonight here in Port Lavaca. Hardly can stand up right now, Jim.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too, Mike.
Whoa.
Well, hang in there, buddy. Get a break. Seriously, we got so many long days ahead of us. You know, all these crews out here, we're going to keep going and going and going because this thing is coming ashore. I was talking earlier about sometimes there's a sense of relief when a hurricane. Mike and I have done a lot of these. When a storm comes ashore, you're thinking, oh, it's going to finally weaken a little bit. That's not the case. We've only. This is a 20-chapter book. What happened, Mikey? Talk to me. What happened? Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jim. Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's very loud out here with the wind and the roar.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
What happened?
I missed your question. I'm here. I'm hanging on.
Well, no, we just heard a big
I came up to hang onto this
exaltation from you. I
rail.
was wondering what's going on.
Oh, I walked over to hang onto the rail, and we're getting a little bit of a channeling effect through this walkway. So I'm getting a little bit more than the ambient wind, and as you walk down here, it just
right.
The wind right now is really howling through here. Just get a load of this visual.
So Mike's in the Venturi tube there, guys.
And the rain.
Think about that. You've got wind blowing here. Now it has to go through this area. Go ahead, Mike. It's going to accelerate through a smaller area. It has to accelerate through a smaller area to get through there. I was telling everybody, Mike, you're in the Venturi tube.
Right now is this is the hardest it's rained all afternoon and evening. Boy, this is just a real battering here for these poor folks here along the central Gulf Coast of Texas, Jim. We wish this thing had some steering flow, some kind of trough to come in from the west and kick it out, but we have no steering flow right now, and that's why it's going to slow down and do this all night and into the weekend.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, Dr. Nab and I were talking about that earlier, about how you couldn't have painted a more perfect spot in terms of having no steering at all. I mean, we've seen some wild rides with the models, which are typical of something that doesn't have a lot of steering flow. They turn, they twist, they bounce all over the place. Dr. Nab, we certainly expect that with this storm. What are you seeing now, again, as this thing is just kind of oozing on shore, if you will, at about 7 miles per hour? Rockport is still completely calm.
Yeah, and one thing I'll highlight is that the forward speed is slower on this advisory. I mean, all the attention, legitimately so, on the landfall of the center of the hurricane, but of note is the slower forward speed northwest at 7 miles per hour. And also, when you take a big picture look here, look at how large the rain shield is associated with this hurricane. When you take this step back, the eye looks relatively small, although it's doing a lot of big damage and storm surge and wind and rain, but it is already starting to rain in the very outermost bands in Austin and San Antonio. We're getting the squalls coming through Galveston and Houston, and a very solid shield of rain between Corpus Christi and Austin. So it's already starting to rain very heavily in those areas. And then when you look at a closer view of the hurricane, of course, we still have the extreme wind warning in effect. There's a flash flood warning in effect here in just about the same spot. And wait until you see how many flash flood warnings start to light up the screen for days and days as this consistent area of rain moves slowly inland. So folks in Victoria, in Beeville, it's just the beginning of days of rainfall for you. And even though it's not going to look this strong when it gets farther inland, the rainfall is still going to be just as potent. And as Jim mentioned, though, Rockport in Aransas Bay here, this is the area where the eye of the hurricane is now, about to, at some point here, make technically a second landfall after it crosses some bays, but it is already onshore, but there's half the circulation yet to go. And for places that are not along the immediate coast, places like Port Lavaca, the center of the hurricane hasn't made its closest approach yet. So up into the bays, when the hurricane gets a little closer, that's when you're going to get your maximum surge. So where Mike Seidel is, he hasn't seen, I don't think, the greatest water rise in that area that will yet to be seen.
Right.
And then, Jim, going back to your point about the track forecast, again, a 24-hour track forecast is not all that far to the west of Victoria. So that means onshore flow on the strong side in Port Lavaca, in Victoria for the next day, and then it's possible it will double back. And this is hard for me to utter these words, but the position of maybe what will be a tropical storm, Harvey, on Monday evening is very close to where it is right now.
That is absolutely unbelievable. I cannot believe you just said that. I mean, when Monday night, it is Friday night, Dr. Nab. Yeah. So that's Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday. That's 4 days from now. And of course, still being a tropical storm means still tropical storm force winds. So I think we're going to see all sorts of records in terms of longevity with tropical storm, either sustained winds or gusts. This is in a class all by itself and through here. And you know what? Here's another thing, Dr. Knapp, too. When we have something that has no steering, we almost don't really know where it's going to go, right? I mean, we have an idea it's not going to move very much, but in terms of exactly where it's going to be, we really don't know exactly where it's going to go.
No, and we just showed the various forecast track models, and they don't all agree on exactly where the center is going to go. Some of them go farther inland than others, and you notice near the end there, some of them start to take it farther north. In fact, this TWCN, this is a consensus or an average of several of the most reliable models. It shows the looping, but then it shows a slow motion toward the north. So just in general terms, what that tells me is the areas that are well inland and north of where it's coming ashore, like Houston, like San Antonio and Austin, you could still have this system coming your way as we get into early and middle part of next week, and it will still be bringing moisture off the Gulf and still be dumping a tremendous amount of rainfall. So when you consider that forecast scenario in general terms, it really isn't shocking that we are putting feet of rainfall on our graphic, really, more than we are inches. And going to 30 inches, it's absolutely astounding how much rain could fall. And I really am concerned about loss of life. This is a life-threatening, multi-day, long-duration rainfall event that has just begun today. And Jim, I know we've said this all the time, but because it's happened so much in the past, it's worth saying too many times, if I have to, that most people who die in inland flooding die in their cars. And the way that happens is they drive onto a water-covered roadway. You just don't know how deep that water is, especially at night. Or they drive around barricades that say road closed. We're going to have some roads closed when the flooding begins. Don't drive. Just stay off the roads.
Doc, think about that. How many people are going to have, just cabin fever? It's raining outside, and they're like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out. I got to go drive and do something. But like you mentioned, you could be putting yourself out in harm's way, and that's something we just absolutely don't want you to do, guys. Really just, you're just going to have to hunker down for a few days. Or if you're not in an area that's flooded yet, go to New Mexico. Or go out to the west where it's not going to rain at all. Just get out of there so you can kind of have some sense of normalcy. But don't go out where it is flooding and when it is going to flood, especially knowing that it's coming in. Doc, I know you probably know this already, but the Weather Prediction Center, which handles a lot of the data in terms of rainfall and the potential for flooding, actually had to add a color to their graphic for rainfall because it didn't go high enough for the next 5 to 7 days.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
There are so many ways that this is unprecedented. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Knapp, we appreciate that. Again, let's go up to Mike Seidel up in Port Lavaca. Mike has been walking around his hotel where he has done some extensive scouting during the day to get himself, above where the surge is going to be. The water's coming up now. To be in the wind, also put his truck or his live view in a position so he can broadcast for us and keep the signal up. Mike, what kind of changes are you seeing? I know it's nightfall, it's hard to see things, but sometimes all it takes is just to look around the corner. You can tell the water's come up a little bit more, and certainly the rain. You're getting into some of those big rain bands now, aren't you?
Yeah, we are, Jim, and the water continues to come up. We're seeing wave action now from Lavaca Bay through the parking lot and into this gravel area here, some of the rockscape. Another piece of debris over there at the foot of the ramp that goes to the front door. As we get rocketed by these winds right now, I just got to keep my center of gravity low, or I'm going to go flying through the parking lot. But look at the wave action. This is piling the water up from the Gulf in Matagorda Bay into Lavaca Bay tonight. Now the power did go off a few minutes ago for about 30 seconds, but now it is back on. So we'll see how long our luck holds out, and we hope that you at home in the storm zone can keep your power on through this. It always makes life a lot better. It's going to be a long night, a long weekend in the next week. We'll have more coverage from From here in Port Lavaca, Jim Cantori in Corpus, our hurricane expert, Dr. Rick Knabb, and Reynolds Wolf all night from Victoria on the Weather Channel. Don't go anywhere.
For a limited time, you can get this fresh, juicy Boston Market rotisserie chicken for $1.99 when you buy any family meal. Now, your next few dinners are taken care of. Boston Market.
It's fall. The geese are headed south. And it's time for you to hit the woods. The season is coming fast, so it's time to button things up, find where they hide, and pattern the deer you seek. Because this year, your hours in the blind will last for a lifetime. Cabela's Great Outdoor Days sale and events. Your one stop before the field. Save $70 on select Cabela's Masterbuilt Sportsman Elite Smokers. Shop in-store and online.
It's been building up over decades. Storm after storm. And through 35 years of severe weather, it's strengthened into trust. Trust in the Weather Channel. To us, nothing matters more. We take you beyond the maps and apps, diving into the science and stories behind the storm. Every season, every storm, every time you watch. Trust the Weather Channel.
Currently in our area, 67 degrees under clear skies. Tonight, mainly clear skies. Low 62. Winds light and variable. Saturday, mostly sunny skies. High 86. Winds south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday night, late night thunderstorms. Low 65. Chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
The sun will come out tomorrow.
For people with heart failure, tomorrow is not a given. But Entresto is a medicine that helps make more tomorrows possible.
Tomorrow, tomorrow.
I love you. Tomorrow.
In the largest heart failure study ever, Entresto helped more people stay alive and out of the hospital than a leading heart failure medicine. Women who are pregnant must not take Entresto. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or Aliskir. If you've had angioedema while taking an ACE or ARB medicine, don't take Entresto. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high potassium in your blood.
Tomorrow, tomorrow. I love you. Tomorrow.
Ask your doctor about Entresto and help make tomorrow possible.
You're only a day away.
Everyone has got a dream. You know what I mean?
Hey, is this our turn? Honey, our turn?
Yeah, we go left right here.
Great adventures are still out there. We'll find them in our Subaru Outback.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on all new 2017 Outbacks. Ends August 31st.
More dermatologists recommend Cetaphil for sensitive skin. Its pH-balanced formula cleanses gently for healthy skin. Women recommend Cetaphil because of how it makes them feel. Healthy skin is beautiful. Cetaphil.
And these are the ones. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Honey.
At our house, we need things that are built to last. That's why we got a Subaru.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% APR financing for 63 months on all new 2017 Legacies. Ends August 31st.
Look,
Isn't that Frank Thomas?
Oh, the big hurt.
More like the big hunk.
Yeah.
Wow, Frank Thomas.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You look like you could still be playing. That's what I said.
Well, I am feeling stronger and leaner. So, Frank, what's your secret? I discovered Nugenics.
I wish my husband did.
It's easy. Just send a text.
If you're a guy over 40, text 321-321 and enter the word FAN to get a complimentary bottle of award-winning Nugenics, the #1 selling free testosterone booster at GNC. Nugenics is a unique man-boosting formula powered by Testofen, a patented key ingredient clinically researched to help boost your free testosterone levels, to help you feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive, more passion, too.
Here, try a bottle. And trust me, she'll like it, too.
Text 321-321 and enter FAN to get a complimentary bottle of Nugenics. Samples are not available in stores, so text 321-321 and enter FAN.
I think what makes the Weather Channel's coverage unique is that we are meteorologists. We know the weather, and that makes a tremendous difference.
And good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching continuing coverage of Hurricane Harvey only on the Weather Channel, as we have seen the eye come ashore now around Rockport at 10 o'clock local time, so 10 o'clock central. Also with a pretty impressive central pressure of 938 millibars. Now, according to some research in through here, this is probably the second lowest landfall pressure for a Texas hurricane. Carla was first at 931 millibars. That was a Cat 4 that came ashore back in 1961. So impressive storm, certainly from the pressure standpoint. Unfortunately, this is just the first chapter of a 20-chapter book. Okay, and what I mean by that is, yes, we've had it come ashore, ooze ashore is more like it. It's only moving at 7 miles per hour. Now it is going to spend an extensive amount of time onshore and potentially be in the same place or near the same place that it is right now, as Dr. Nab was mentioning earlier, on Monday night. So Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night. 4 times 24, do the math. That's a long, long time of being onshore. Still being as a tropical storm. This system may set records in terms of longevity for tropical storm wind gusts or even winds in areas, even hurricane winds and wind gusts being the long time that it's going to take for this system to wind down. Either way, a widespread rain field has us very, very concerned about double-digit rainfall totals, about feet of rain over hundreds and hundreds of square miles. And that, unfortunately, does include our 4th largest city, Houston, Texas, where we've never seen a rainfall forecast this high. We've had rainfall, certainly with Allison back in 2001, but we certainly have not seen a forecast, a widespread forecast in and around Houston. So Houston, unfortunately, could flood multiple times. It's some scary scenarios here. We don't exactly know all the details of where the rain is going to set up, but that potential is there. We're seeing the rain, by the way, starting to add up. In some cases, several reporting stations now with 6 inches of rain. Our highest gust has been Port Aransas, 131 miles per hour. Rockport has been under wind gusts as well of 130 miles per hour. And now they are an eerie calm as they are spending extensive time in the eye, which is the center of the hurricane, which has no wind. It's the calm. It's amazing. I've been in an eye. As a matter of fact, it was the last eye I was in Ike. When I was in Galveston. We went through the eye of Ike, and it's amazing what you can hear and what you can smell in that eye. But then you get nailed on the backside of it. And in Ike's case, it was a pretty strong backside storm. I think just as strong as the front side, which is amazing given the front side was getting off the Gulf of Mexico. I want to bring in Dr. Rick Nab to talk about this. Rick, you mentioned earlier just how you had trouble saying it, that the position that this is in right now could be very similar after some movement as we get in toward Monday night. It's a possibility. It's one of the scenarios.
Yeah, it is. And the details of where the center of circulation go are troubling enough. But even if you're not near the center of circulation, you could be in the center of action in terms of where the rain bands are. So to illustrate this point, the hurricane is centered way down here near Rockport, northeast of Corpus Christi, where you are, Jim. But there are rain bands coming into the Houston-Galveston area. Rain is already starting to begin in some of the southern extents of the Austin area and near San Antonio, and a lot of rain in between. So rain that will cause flooding is already beginning in hundreds and hundreds of square miles. And you might think, well, okay, is there any good news here? You know, we were just talking off camera here with Chris Warren a little bit ago, and we were trying to identify, okay, what's the good news here? Well, first, let's review the bad news. All the hazards are in play: wind, storm surge, inland flooding, tornadoes, and then the waves and the rip currents. Everything is in play here in the worst way, okay? And because of the slow motion, again, it's not going to make much headway in the next 24 hours, just be west of Victoria still as a hurricane. Because of the slow motion, it poses the long duration of storm surge, winds, and rainfall. And then it, like I was reminding everybody earlier, and you just said, Jim, it could double back and go over the location close to where it made landfall. And that means huge rainfall totals could rack up. And water kills 9 out of 10 people that die historically in tropical systems. And when a system doesn't move like this, the chances of water taking lives goes way up, because the storm surge is going to be high with the Cat 4. It's going to last long with the continued onshore flow, because the models show hardly any motion. And the rainfall totals are going to rack up over days. And what you end up having is not just inches, but feet of rainfall. And since water takes all the lives, and we've got a huge water problem here for days to come, what's the good news? Well, the good news is that in most cases, water-related fatalities are preventable. Now, hopefully, people have gotten out of the storm surge-prone areas by evacuating, and that would save lives from the storm surge. Now, thinking about the inland flood, the second biggest cause of loss of life in U.S. tropical systems, inland flooding, most people, the way they die from inland flooding, from heavy rain, is in their cars. So if we promise ourselves that we're not going to drive our cars on water-covered roadways or drive around barricades, then the chances of surviving the inland flooding go way up. So the good news is, Jim, we control our own outcome to stay safe from the water hazards.
Right. The bad news is, though, we don't do that. Okay? I mean, I don't know what it is that why people think they can just drive in water and not have problems. I mean, the power of water is incredible. It's virtually incompressible. A cube of water, a 3D cube of water, weighs about 62 pounds. All right, so you're not going to win. All right, let's go up to Port Lavaca. Mike Seidel, thank you, Dr. Knapp. Always appreciate your insight. Mike is dealing again with the eastern wind and the storm surge and the rain bands. He's got it all going on. He's not in the eye wall, nor am I, but it's bad enough outside the eye wall, isn't it, Mike Seidel?
No, it is indeed. Now, we've come on the other side of the hotel for safety purposes and to protect our camera, because without a camera, you can't see me. It's still very, very windy. Well, we're out of the strongest of the winds, but I don't know if you can see in the distance, it is still whipping up here really good. And look at the surge and the water rise across the entire parking lot. Now, this is about 18 inches, not quite 2 feet deep. It continues to come in. Straight back there is Lavaca Bay. In fact, why don't we take a walk down there? I think we can do that because we got plenty of light. We just have to watch out. We did notice that some of the guttering came down when we were walking through the water. In fact, I found it. This is what you have to worry about. This came off the building. This is the only thing I've seen that has come down, but this stuff, this could do some damage to you if it goes flying. We'll put it right back down in the water and let it go. We'll walk through here again. This is the hotel that's up about 16, 17 feet to the first floor. We'll just look ahead. We're going to walk down here, and we'll be looking right out into Lavaca Bay. That's where all the water's coming from. So the entire hotel is surrounded on the lower level, but there's nothing on the lower level except some, like this, some storage rooms here. Concrete and steel. This is hardy plank. What is that? Fiberglass and concrete. Good stuff to have on your home if you don't go brick. And then we come up here through the access. As I mentioned before, the power went off for a few seconds, maybe half a minute, and then it came back on. What they've done is they did turn off the elevator earlier today for safety reasons, so that's the way into the elevator. But this out here, my friends, is where all the water's coming from, the surge. This is Lavaca Bay in the distance. And now we're under our balcony upstairs where the kitchen is and the breakfast and dining areas. But this water's come up about 2 feet since dinner time, and the waves crashing in here. But again, our fetch here isn't that long. It's only a few miles to the other side of Port Comfort. We're not getting a long fetch like they're getting on those barrier islands and those beaches, but the wind is still whipping through here, and we've got a long way to go because of the water staying up all night into tomorrow, maybe into Sunday, and the battering waves on the beaches, not so much here. Let's walk back through here, give you an idea what's going on again. So remember, the big difference with Harvey versus any other hurricane we've seen, maybe in memory, is it could make 2 landfalls in Texas. It's also got no steering flow. It's going to slow down tonight and throw on its brakes. So for the next several days at least, it's going to meander in Texas, maybe near the coast, maybe a little bit inland. That will impact the rainfall totals on the far northwest quadrant. Still very confident right now, Dallas-Fort Worth, you'll miss certainly the direct impacts by far of Harvey. But with the unrelenting rainfall, you won't need surge to have your streets and neighborhoods look like this in the days to come. Victoria, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, a very flood-prone area. We've seen that many, many times before. So the whole hotel is surrounded by water. We're upstairs. Those floors are well above the zone. The power is still on, which is something we've noticed that is good. And we hope your power stays on too. Then this is where we were earlier. We were down there getting whipped. You can see how the wind is whipping the water. You can hear the roar of the wind through the building. Very eerie sound, especially overnight when you're laying there and you try to go to sleep. But it just continues to roar through here. Now the rainfall total here now is over 5 inches. We have been hit with 5 inches of rain, and we're not even to midnight Friday night here on the east coast of central Gulf Coast of Texas. It just gives you an idea of how prolific a rainfall producer it's been so far, moving at 8 to 10 miles an hour. Now it's going to slow down and meander potentially into the middle part of next week. Now, where is it headed next? Well, in the short term, the eye and the eye wall are heading northwest inland, and the next town up US 87 from here in Port Lavaca is Victoria. Now, there was a mandatory evacuation in Victoria County, but a lot of folks have stayed, including the media, and we've got Reynolds Wolf there all night long coming up. But first, let's check in with NBC's Dre Gray in Victoria. And Jay, checking the obs earlier, you'd already gusted upwards of 50 miles an hour. How's the weather there as far as wind and the rainfall?
Stand by.
Okay, we don't have Jay Gray yet. We'll try to get back to him certainly in the next few minutes as we head up to Victoria. As I mentioned, Reynolds Wolf will be there all night, and he'll have some stunning pictures for sure. We'll come back out here into the parking lot and get back into the real wind from Hurricane Harvey. Now we've got Jay Gray in Victoria. Jay, give us the latest on the wind and rain there so far, knowing that you've got a long night ahead, and those areas there, just like here, could be looking at 2 to 3 feet of rainfall between now and the middle of next week.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that amazing to think about? We have seen the wind picked up dramatically after this thing made landfall, and as it inches closer to this area, the rain as well. It's been constant all day, which is not good news because rain is what we're going to see for the next several days here. But it has picked up. We're in a bit of a lull right now, so that's the good news. But we know that a lot more is on the way, and it's going to intensify before things get better as this continues through the late night and into the early morning here. And then even as the wind dies off, we're going to continue to see that rain falling for the next several days, more than 30 inches in the forecast, and could see more than that before it's all said and done. A lot of people here have moved to higher ground. We know all of the shelters in the area of Victoria are filled to capacity right now. If you're thinking about moving and you're in this area, too late. Hunker down, stay where you are. ride this thing out. You don't want to get out now when things are going to just continue to get worse and worse and break apart as we move through the night and into the early morning here. Now, we know that there are already crews staged here, power crews. There are generators that are being held by FEMA along the path of this storm and ready to move in. The Texas National Guard has been deployed, part of a huge response effort that does include the feds at this point. They are going to move in as quickly as possible. But again, what we've got to see is not only that wind die down, but some of the water start to recede. So it could be a few days before crews can get into some of the hardest hit areas and start their work here. For those who said before this storm that they were going to stay and ride this thing out, they had provisions that would last for 2 weeks, maybe even more without power. Probably a good estimate in some of the worst case scenarios here, because it's going to be tough to get things up and running again. Going to be a struggle for a lot of people for a long time.
Okay, Jay, thanks for the update from Victoria. That's NBC's Jay Gray. He'll be there through the event, I'm sure, with the aftermath. It would be nice to use the word aftermath, because you can't have aftermath until the thing moves out, and this is going to be around for a long time. Reynolds Wolf will be on board from Victoria all night as the eye and the eye wall approach that Texas town. It's about 55 miles, plus or minus a few, from the Gulf Coast. But again, this is forecast to become stay a hurricane right on through Saturday.
Yeah, Mike, Dr.
Sunday,
Knapp, can you hear me?
We still have tropical storm force winds. Yeah, Dr. Knapp is now back in the lab. And, Dr. Knapp, what can you tell me about our situation here? Because I'm using my phone to communicate, and I haven't had a chance to look at the radar closely. But just based on the battering we're taking, some of these bands obviously associated with the outer eye wall on the east side of Hurricane Harvey.
Yes, one thing to keep in mind about how things are going to be trending in your location in Port Lavaca is that the hurricane has not made its closest pass in terms of the center, the eye, passing to your southwest. So as it continues moving northwestward inland and probably slowing down as it does so, it will be a gradual ramp up, minus the breaks that you might have as the banding structure comes and goes at your location. But in general terms, the wind speed will get stronger once the hurricane is directly to your southwest rather than being more to your south-southwest, and you'll get closer to the strongest winds. So that's the wind part. But the storm surge part is also going to change, because as those winds continue to push water from the Gulf of Mexico up the bay and the strength of the winds increases, these water rises and the storm surge flooding above normally dry ground that you see on this graphic, these reasonable worst case scenario values in the oranges and the reds that exceed 6 or 9 feet, those could be realized, not necessarily so much in Port Lavaca itself, but in many of the surrounding areas and going all the way across the bay over into Palacios. So Mike, I wanted to know, based on your location just as one sample point, do you have the sense that over the last hour or so that gradually the water level has continued to rise?
Yes, it has continued to rise, and we've lost our light here, so just bear with us. I know it's not the best conditions. We're going to get back in here. Now we've got the light back on. Yes, Dr. Knapp, the water continues to rise, as evidenced by it's getting up to my knees here in the parking lot. And again, we're on the back side, or I guess the front side, where you would check in upstairs here at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites here in Port Lavaca. So yeah, continuing to rise, and that is to be expected, as you mentioned, because the winds are still blowing onshore, and they will stay onshore. But a good point you made, closest approach of the eye has not happened yet. So the winds will still ramp up, and you know, even without the wind, the rain is just coming in buckets. It's like a stationary waterfall over Texas, here, this part of Texas. That's the way to describe it going into the early part of next week. So these rainfall amounts, as far as breaking the state record of 48 inches, we may not do that, but as far as the coverage area, it's just going to be amazing how many counties are going to get double-digit rainfalls and maybe even numbers that exceed 20 inches from Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah, and Mike, it's good. It's worth reiterating the forecast scenario here, just in the short term. You know, it's bad enough what's going to happen over the next 24 hours before we even talk about over the next 5 days. But relative to the area of Texas in which you're located, you know, not just coastal folks, but going farther inland, the hurricane is not going to go that far over the next 24 hours as it heads northwestward and inland. And by tomorrow night at this time, it might just be several miles west of Victoria, and still producing, if the center of circulation's here, you're going to have continued onshore flow into the area of Matagorda Bay and Lavaca Bay. And that will mean the water levels will stay high, and the winds will still be blowing, probably at tropical storm force, at least in gusts, and the rain will still be falling, and that's only for the next 24 hours. And then we are expecting that it's not going to make much farther headway inland after tomorrow night. In fact, might start on Sunday, coming back the other direction and keeping the rainfall over your area, and the tropical storm force winds. Maybe at some point the onshore flow slackens a little bit, but you've got days and days of rainfall ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and I think about covering all these tropical storms and hurricanes. I think this is number 64 for me. But I remember, you know, I'm thinking back how long I spent on the beach or in weather like this. And if we go into tomorrow, this is going to rank right up there at the top. Remember Irene? I was out on the beach at Nag's Head from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's what, 15 hours. And, you know, I can run through all these hurricanes and storms since I covered my first one with Edward Labor Day weekend of 1996 for the Weather Channel. And nothing comes to mind that would approach this kind of extended coverage. Because usually by the next day, as you well know, we've got an offshore wind and the sun is out, and we're looking at the aftermath and assessing, you know, power outages, getting things back up and running on the beaches, and trying to get life back to normal. But we're not going to be able to do that for a while. It's going to be maybe the middle of next week, Dr. Nab, before that happens. We appreciate your expert advice. Good to have you back on board. Meanwhile, we've got coverage all weekend. We've got crews Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Reynolds Wolf will be up all night into tomorrow morning in Victoria, Texas. I'll be here for a little while longer. We've got Jim Cantori in Corpus Christi. Plus, we're going to have expert analysis all weekend. Dr. Rick Knabb here. Also, Brian Norcross and our other experts, Dr. Erica Navarro, in the lab through the weekend as we keep you updated, keep you safe. We're trying to keep everybody safe and save lives. Again, the bottom line, prolific rainfall totals, a catastrophe in the making, and the best bet is stay on higher ground, stay home, do not venture out. Remember, inland flooding from systems like this is the #1 killer. We'll come back, we'll take a break, and we'll return to our coverage from the Texas Gulf Coast. Dangerous Hurricane Harvey has just made landfall.
This Labor Day at Enterprise Car Sales. Experience great customer service and get more for your trade August 25th through September 5th. And let Enterprise Car Sales flip your thinking about buying your next vehicle.
I take pictures of sunrises, but with my back pain, I couldn't sleep and get up in time. Then I found Aleve PM.
Aleve PM is the only one to combine a safe sleep aid plus the 12-hour pain-relieving strength of Aleve.
I'm back.
Aleve PM for a better AM.
Managing blood sugar is a series of smart choices. And when you replace one meal or snack a day with Glucerna, made with Carb Steady to help minimize blood sugar spikes, you can really feel it. Now with 30% less carbs and sugars. Glucerna.
Now at the Honda Summer Bration sales event, you can get a great deal on a Honda Accord and make every summer moment that much brighter. Summer fun starts here at the Honda Summer Bration sales event. The sun is setting on these amazing deals. Get a Honda Accord today from KBB.com's Best Value brand. Ends September 5th.
With Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape, you can prep any angle quicker and easier. 3M's advanced poly material helps stop paint seepage, and it's easy to remove in one long pull, so you can pull off a better paint job. Scotch Blue Platinum Painter's Tape.
I love you.
bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck. Though you make my heart a wreck, make my heart a wreck, and you make my life a mess, make my life a mess, yes, a mess of happiness.
While other insurance companies just see a house, we see the home you've worked really hard for. So why not give it the protection it deserves?
I'm proud of what the Weather Channel is. It's a place you can turn to and trust.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else.
We are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to a weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Introducing the all-new DR Leaf and Lawn Vacuum, now at our lowest price ever. The DR cleans up acres of leaves and grass while you mow. In the spring, collect dead grass, wet leaves, and twigs from storm damage. Come summer, the DR makes a great high-capacity bagger, and in the fall, turns days of raking into a drive in the park. When it's time to unload, nothing could be easier. Look, just one hand. Plus, with the collector top removed, you've got a rugged utility cart that's great for all kinds of hauling chores. The DR is the most powerful, most versatile lawn machine you can buy.
Call 1-800-731-6506 for a free buyer's guide and DVD. Learn how you can qualify for 0% financing and try a DR on your own property for 1 year. Free shipping is now in effect. That's 1-800-731-6506. Online at drleafvac.com.
When the weather turns serious, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I communicate the message very clearly to people so they understand what the risk is and how to get through this?
Currently in our area, 66 degrees under fair skies. Tonight, mainly clear, low 61, winds light and variable. Saturday, sunshine and clouds mixed, high 85, winds south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday night, late night thunderstorms, low 65, chance of rain 80%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of dangerous Hurricane Harvey. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel in Port Lavaca, Texas. We are on the east side of the hurricane, which made landfall not long ago down in Aransas County. Now Rockport took the eye and the winds went calm. And the next town in line will likely be, certainly the major town would be Victoria. Reynolds Wolf will be live there starting up at 1 a.m. Eastern, so that's about an hour away from now. Here in Port Lavaca, you can see the wind and the rain. It is just howling through here. And the water rise has come up here around the hotel. We've got about 2 feet of water. The hotel is very